As they weaved their way through the crowd, a warm yellow light emerged, leaking out of a nearby doorway. Announced? Gwen's arm was still hooked through Aurora's. She suddenly felt rather inclined to make her way back to her chambers. A man bowed to them, and Gwen took a step back as glitter spewed to the floor. The herpes of decor. Aurora said something to the man that Gwen couldn't hear. Nodding, he picked up his staff and slammed it into the ground 3 times. Turning to face Gwen, she whispered in her ear,
"He'll announce me first. At the bottom of the stairs, there's a basket of masks. Grab one, and I'll meet you on the dance floor."
Gwen could feel herself paling. Doesn't announcing us defeat the whole purpose of a masquerade ball?
"Lady Aurora Lockwood!"
the herald yelled as the room and music temporarily quieted. Gwen's mouth dropped. Aurora was a lady? As though being in front of hundreds of eyes was an everyday occurrence, well, perhaps it was for a performer of Cirque de Bourg. Aurora inclined her head toward the herald and then to the onlookers far below before descending the stairs. As all eyes fastened on Aurora, Gwen whispered, "If you don't mind, I'll just follow her."
"All attendees must be announced."
The herald nodded to the scribe beside him, who hurriedly scratched names into a leather-bound notebook that he bought from the Renaissance Festival for $35. He shook the quill, twisting the gears at one end. That really isn't necessary.
"The mistress requires it."
Gwen scowled at him, though the gesture felt half-assed with only one human eye to narrow.
"Name, madam?"
Gwen. The man raised an eyebrow covered in glitter.
Gwen...
Gwendolyn fucking Grimm.
Your funeral. Miss Gwendolyn fucking Grimm. Hello and welcome back to another meeting of the St. Balasar University English Club. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Jay.
And we are out from under the clutches of Age of Scorpius. I feel like we bit off so much with that, but we are back right where we belong, 5 years after the fact of a book that no one thinks about anymore, with LaTorre's The Cyborg Tinkerer. This is a really exciting one for me because LaTorre is actually the, the faculty advisor. Is that what they called them? Or like the sponsors of the English Club here at St. Balasar University? Because I learned a lot about writing from LaTorre. She was one of my first like author tubers that I ever followed, and I have a little bit more to say about like how this book came to occupy my mind space and be something I want to talk about for this podcast. This like Handbook for Mortals and Zenith are the main reasons I wanted to do SBU in the first place, which is kind of ironic in this case because this book is pretty much Handbook for Mortals meets Zenith, if you think about it.
It kind of is, yeah, I see the comparison. This is like a very different class of bad book than Age of Scorpius is. It's like, I guess there was drama about it at the time, but nowadays any drama has faded fully into the background and it's become just sort of like a remarkable book that just isn't very good. Yeah. Like that's kind of its whole thing. Like the personhood behind it, like, I mean, the author doesn't really matter so much anymore. Yeah. Now it's just like, oh yeah, this book kind of sucks. Isn't that interesting?
Right. Yeah, so if you're unfamiliar, we'll give you the Spark Notes. The title of the poll that I gave the Order of the Orb Fox for voting on the next book was, please God, no book talk, just anything other than book talk. I'll read anything in the world. So this is this actually predates book talk. The things that LaTorre was called out for in terms of like caliber of sin are way different than your Audra Winters or even your Lanny Sarums. So. Like the accusations that have been leveled against LaTorre / iWriterly are not nearly as bad as some of these things. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be breezy. We're not going to have to explain what problematic TikTok behaviors are.
Right. All that back to basic shit that we love.
All the back to basic shit that we love. But hey, and speaking of the Order of the Orb Fox, if you like what we do and you want to support our mission to bring balanced critique to the books that the internet has written off, we will have links in the description for you to do so. Members of our Order of the Orb Fox get all of our videos early, as well as the ability to vote on our next episode. And all supporters get extra content, such as Not an Audiobook, a Kate Corain's Crown of Starlight companion podcast, and most recently, a Xavier Renegade Angel tier list, where we sat down and watched every single episode and ranked them in one sitting. So that was a very interesting experience. Thank you guys so much. Even if you just watch us on YouTube, you are supporting our mission, and we just really appreciate the community that we've been able to create with you guys.
Thanks for being here. Hope you'll stick around.
Hope you'll stick around after this wonderful steampunk nightmare world.
Emphasis on steam, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh god, oh god, oh god. This is worse than book talk at some points.
It's worse that this like festered in LaTorre's mind alone. Like there's something about like the horny atmosphere of book talk that like you know what you're getting into when you step over into that side of things. Like it's a bunch of people who are very horny and they're very defensive about how horny they are. But LaTorre did this in like some dark cocoon of her own making, like just all by herself. Like, ooh, this is for me. Like, I don't know, Meg. Did you mean to publish this? Like, did you just accidentally click publish on the wrong file?
I think she did, and I think it was the penultimate draft because this is like so close. Anyways, we'll get into it after these messages. All right, so before we jump into your summary, I have sort of like a mini summary of my own. I have like a very interesting relationship to iWriterly and LaTorre that factors very heavily into SBU, and I think a lot of this is just like Andrew lore, so skip this if you're not interested, but I don't think this is a unique story, and I think this is like an interesting slice of internet history or like philosophical ponderings on who should be making writing advice.
So I was very much an outsider to LaTorre's personhood, her online identity, like back when she was running iWriterly. But it's my understanding that iWriterly was like some kind of YouTube channel where she posted writing advice without having yet written a book. And then this was the book that she released.
Correct.
And so when it was bad, people felt betrayed, right?
That's it. That's you summed it all up. But just allow that I should tell thee a tale of a business major.
Please.
A young writer who perchanced upon a YouTube channel. The year was COVID. I was miserable, freshly out of college, awash in the feculent knowledge that if I was ever going to be serious about writing, I needed to start now. So I would put on all of these like YouTube channels, your Brandon Sanderson lectures. I watched a lot of Ellen Brock, Alexa Dawn sometimes. There was this like stable of YouTubers that I would have in the rotation. And then there was iWriterly. So I was a fan of iWriterly the way that I am a fan of kettle-cooked potato chips. Like, I knew it wasn't good for me. I knew I wasn't gaining much by consuming it, but it was just good enough to like have it on in the background. The fact that they're kettle chips makes it feel a little bit fancier than your like average chips. I don't know. The metaphor's kind of falling apart, but she had this energy to her that I liked. She always managed to light a fire under my ass and I would be able to write more. But the problem was I cannot tell you a single thing that iWriterly quote unquote taught me. It was like, don't use adverbs, don't write characters who are bad, you know, like it wasn't, it wasn't very like deep lessons, but there was an allure to how she presented herself as an insider to the industry, because I really wanted to be like traditional published. I hadn't even written draft one, but I was watching videos about how to write queries and stuff that she was making. She was either like a literary agent, or I think she said worked at a literary agency. She used this very evasive language that basically just implied that she breathed the same air as literary agents before, which I think goes into one of the reasons she was like mini canceled, because she claimed to have all this experience that may or may not be as true as we think it is. Kind of in an Audra Winter way. We can't escape her. Jesus Christ. So COVID turns into more COVID, and I'm wrapping up the first draft of my first work in progress that I literally, like, I owe it to iWriterly, like, the inspiration and whatever that I got. And it's a terrible book, so maybe I shouldn't be thanking her. But anyways, so I'm writing draft one, and she's releasing the Cyborg Tinkerer. And you could tell in her upload, she gets more and more annoying about it. She'll start to market it a little bit more, and then it releases, and she talks about it in like every video. And I noticed that her videos turn into Lay's potato chips, not kettle cooked, because she would just like throw them out there and be like, hey, don't use adverbs. Anyways, buy my book. And that's the entire video. You know what I mean? It just kind of started feeling more dispassionate and markety.
Absolutely.
I grinned and I bore it. You know, I learned very quickly that the book was bad, but I didn't care, you know? Like, I didn't care that she wrote a bad book. I still liked her advice.
Yeah.
Like, you and I both like Yahtzee Croshaw, the zero punctuation guy who's now whoever he is in Second Wind. I hated his book Mogworld. If that's a good book, don't at me. I read it when I was like 15 or whatever, so like I had different tastes back then. But like I didn't like Mogworld, but I still really heavily trust Yahtzee Crowshaw's critique, and I like the stuff that he creates. So it was the same principle. I'm not going to unsubscribe from her because I think her book is stupid. I did unsubscribe from her eventually, and I remember the exact moment that I did it, and it had nothing to do with the quality of the book. It was some random video opens with her freaking toddler, like this 3-year-old boy holding a copy of the Cyborg Tinkerer, and he's like, buy my mommy's book or something like completely
no child should be touching that.
Well, and Meg LaTorre comes in and yanks the book out of her toddler's hand, and she's like, oh, Billy, you can't read this yet because you're not old enough, and it's a sexy book. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, lady.
Dude, that's so...
So I hit the unsubscribe button. I was pretty much done with her by now, and you can only hear, don't write a scene that sucks so many times.
Right.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back, basically. And then a year ago, she posted something about like, I'm retiring the iWriterly name, I'm quitting the internet, I'm going DFE mode. I think she said that she was halting production of the Cyborg Tinkerer because this is a self-published book. And that is the last I have heard of her, and the last moves she's made on the internet, to my recollection. She may have presences here and there, but the empire has fallen, basically. And the TLDR is exactly what you said in the beginning. She presented herself as so knowledgeable and had all of these industry connections, but seems like she didn't have a lot of industry connections or industry knowledge. And when she was put to the test, it kind of fell apart. Spoiler alert, I don't think this is a very good book. I'm not going to have a lot of good things to say about this book. But like, I don't know. I feel weird that her entire channel was basically nuked by this experience, you know?
Yeah, it's a bit sad, conceptually. I don't know that I'm good, that I can mourn it, but also I never really was a fan, so.
Right, I don't really mourn it. I had graduated beyond iWriterly by the time all of this happened, but I needed it in COVID when I was a dumb business major who felt like he had wasted his college years and wanted to write a book. It came in handy, so I do kind of feel like an obligation to give this a fair shake, even though I'm not gonna like it. And
did she ever explain why it was called iWriterly? It sounds so corporate.
I don't know, because it's on the internet. It's like iCarly, you know?
Oh, it's like iCarly, yeah. Did she ever do like a random dancing?
I don't remember a single thing this woman told me, like I said. So like, sure, you know, you can imagine that she did random dancing because that's more charming, and would just make this way better. So without any further ado, I think you're on summary duty this time. Without another word, she set off into the sky, heading straight for the narrow slip of energy connecting the force field to the center of the city. She prayed she wouldn't capitally fuck this up, because she's in the capital city. Do you get it? But she wasn't the same tinkerer who'd signed a circus contract for a chance at life. She'd learned more about coding, engineering, and tinkering. I always kind of thought that tinkering was like the word for engineering in this universe. But anyways, in so doing, she'd learned to be more confident in herself. She hoped she'd hold on to that confidence when she came face to face with the force field technology she didn't understand.
This is so petty, but I just can't take the word tinkering seriously.
Now that I've gotten my lore dump out of the way and you guys know a little bit more about maybe, you know, who this person even is, let alone why we're reading her book, how about you walk us through the magical, steamy world of Anchorage and botany, and later on it was not Bastion, that's a guy's name. Those are actually the only two planet names I remember.
Grandstand.
Grandstand. Orthodox.
Assiduous. Oh no, wait, not that's from the last one.
Oh no.
Yeah, right. You got your jimmies off, so it's only fair if I get mine as well. And with that in mind, LaTorre's The Cyborg Tinkerer, The Curious Case of the Cyborg Circus, Princesses of Earth, Volume 1, begins on our protagonist, as these things tend to do, one Miss Gwendolyn Grimm. She is a ship's engineer with a brain tumor, and she has just a few months left to live. Deciding that she's basically content to waste away alone in a familiar but sort of trashy inn at a port, she gets off the boat she's been working on, finds a room at said seedy inn, and kind of chills out.
Just goes to town on strangers.
Yeah, just sort of, vibes out. But then she hears that there is a illegal cyborg circus in town. Coincidence of coincidences.
Because the innkeeper she comes up to the innkeeper and she's like, heard any rumors lately? And the innkeeper's doing his like idle animation and a text bubble appears. Oh, I heard there was a secret illegal cyborg circus in town. And then she responds, oh, I thought they were run out in the War of Rebalancing. I mean, the Cyborg Prohibition Act. It's just like a very, very obviously telegraphed little Maiden Butler exposition thing. I think a lot of people have memed on this, but we're no different.
It's almost the kind of thing that you could expect from a writer who thinks that writing can be reduced down to 6.5 minute long bits of advice that you repeat ad nauseum until they become
5 easy
true.
steps. Right. Yeah. She probably heard something that said show don't tell, so she showed the guy telling her. I don't know.
So she steals 6 cheese wheels and a silver goblet on the way out by stealthing directly behind the innkeeper, and then she busts out her hoverboard and flies out into a junkyard that is there, and that's where the cyborg circus has set up.
So this is my fault. I'm sure it's better described than I thought it was, but I literally just pictured like a skateboard. I know it's probably more of like a moped or something, but I just pictured her like doing like a 90s protagonist and like the opening just like skating to this illegal circus. Anyways, sorry.
She references Treasure Planet in the marketing, so I was imagining the thing that the kid from Treasure Planet has, but without the sail. I think that's what it's supposed to be.
Sure.
But a skateboard is a very accurate analogy. It serves the same function in terms of transportation, but also like making her seem like a sick and cool, awesome, like she rides on unconventional means of transportation. So she gets to the circus and she just sort of walks around checking out all these acts. She's trying to keep her head down because technically if she is caught there, she could be prosecuted and maybe even executed, as could all of the performers. And she ends up catching the eye of some lady, like literally some person. And they end up having like semi-discreet public finger banging sex in the crowd. Because Gwen is like, I'm sad that I'm gonna die. So this is how I'm coping.
There's something that's not working about this. It's not sexy. It's and maybe that's on purpose because this is like a very sad moment in her life, Gwen's life, where she's like basically resigned herself to death and she's just gonna sleep with whoever and do whatever until she dies. Maybe. It is described in a way that I think we're meant to find arousing.
But I agree that it's very gross. Yeah. And I also find the fact that it's just in public gross. I don't really care that they're in like an illegal situation where lots of seedy shit is happening. It's not cool to like have sex in front of people if there's not consent. That's just weird.
Yeah.
So as you might have been able to predict, the feds, which is what they refer to as stormtroopers, effectively, conduct a raid and everyone scatters. Gwen hops on her hoverboard. She almost gets away, but then her tumor causes her to black out like in midair. Yeah. And she crumples, but she survives and she's caught and arrested and taken to prison.
She has like a brain attack, which I guess is a thing.
Right. Like, I don't know. She had mentioned that it had caused her like spells of dizziness or whatever before, so I didn't have a huge problem with this. Yeah. It is very convenient. It feels like a thing that happens arbitrarily so that the plot can continue, but it's also like whatever. We're still in the early, like, low stakes part of the story. It's fine. She needs to get captured.
Yeah, whatever.
She wakes up in prison, and it's not long before she is approached by our deuteragonist, one Bastian Kabir.
Bastian Kabir.
He is a sort of official in the cyborg circus, but he's not there in the prison under that name. He has pretended to be a lord in order to get inside so that he can offer Gwen a job at Cirque de Borg, the cyborg circus. Basically, the deal that he offers to her is this. The cyborg circus has surgical techniques that will successfully remove her tumor and save her life, like guaranteed. There's no ambiguity about this.
Right.
She will be saved.
Survive, yeah.
But she must, in exchange, forfeit all of her current relationships, sign a contract to work for the circus for 13 years, and become a cyborg, which entails, of course, becoming a outlaw, effectively, because cyborgs, under the cyborg prohibition law, are not allowed to be made anymore. If you're a current cyborg, you can get in some trouble, but if you're a new cyborg that, like, has gotten cyborgified since the law was put into place, you get into, like, mega trouble. And there's an additional wrinkle, which is that cyborgs are known to lose some of their memories over time.
Yes.
So, which feels... It's hard to explain this because it's kind of an arbitrary feeling. But I think for me, the associative logic, not to get poetry on you, between cyborg and losing your memories doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no inherent connection between those ideas. And the novel will wave this away later by making it part of a separate plot contrivance.
But it's part of an evil plan. It's something so obvious and weird and not beneficial that it could only be part of an evil plan. We should probably, like, establish the Cyborg Prohibition Act in general, because, like, it's really just kind of a background detail for a lot of this. There's this Emperor King Daddy Titus, Emperor Titus Andromachus, something with an A, I can't remember. It's like the most obvious, like, Roman name possible. Anyways, he has this philosophy, and I think the act is pretty much directly passed down from him, that cyborgs are just too dangerous to be allowed to be in society because you can control them through a chip. Even before she becomes a cyborg, Gwen doesn't believe this. Gwen thinks that that's just, like, propaganda created to, increase discrimination against cyborgs. But keep that philosophy in mind. The reason that Titus wants to ban all cyborgs is because that they are incredibly dangerous, unregulated, and can be controlled by bad actors through a chip. This right now is a lie.
Yeah, this is a lie for now. He also believes just that cyborgs in general, and this seems like an additional prejudice he has that's just tacked on to make him more evil, is that he also thinks that they are just more inherently, more emotionally dysregulated.
Right.
Which is like, okay, I don't know why you think that, but sure, whatever you say.
Sure.
Whatever you say, King Daddy Lamech.
Emperor Daddy
Lamech. Titus. Yeah.
Whatever.
Minos. So Gwen's like, sure, whatever, I guess. I do kind of want to live. So they bust her out of the prison, not like in a heisty way, just in like a, I'll be taking her with me kind of way. And they travel by space carriage, I think. What was the carriage, terrestrial or celestial?
Do not ask me anytime there's a transition between scenes. I never understand the means of locomotion or the vehicles. It's always completely opaque to me.
The vehicles and the geography are both very, very confusing, which is weird considering there's a big fuck off boat on the cover of the book. Like, okay, so the boats are like Spanish galleons, like pirate ships.
Right.
But they also
are spaceships.
They also sail through space. They're spaceships. But they can also go on water, and they do dock on water.
Right.
Which confused me for the longest time because we kept talking about these ships like docking and stuff, and I was like, wait, are they just hovering above a big chasm instead of them floating on water? But no, we do learn that they are on the ocean still, which is like
they take off from the ocean. Sure. Yeah, whatever. Like it's fine. I don't care too much.
I only don't like it because it's not explored at all. It's just taken for granted. And I'm like, oh no, wait, this could be interesting. But we just are like, no, they're water and space boats.
Right.
In any case, we haven't gotten to the space boat yet. They're on a carriage, and the carriage is taking them to the space boat, but then Gwen starts to just die. Like, she starts blacking out, and Bastian is like, we gotta get her now into the surgery, like, there's no time, and this feels like so out of nowhere. But they rush her into surgery, which she will have to be awake for, because apparently if you anesthetize somebody when you make them a cyborg, it prevents their brain from like syncing up with the prosthetic properly, which I thought was very cool, and I wish that there had been more body horror. But we kind of then fade to black and shift perspectives to our tritagonist, Aurora.
Well, does she have a last name?
She does, but I don't remember what it is. She has a last name that's like noble or whatever, because she's from a noble house.
All of these characters are nobles. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Anyways.
Yeah. The circus docks on Grandstand, which it took me a while to realize is a planet that is different from the other planets we've been on so far.
Right.
Now, you might be thinking that this planet, Grandstand, that the circus boat has docked on is like the circus planet or something. Like the whole planet is a circus, like it's Mario Galaxy, because why else would the planet be called Grandstand? But it's not.
No.
It's just the circus, which again is an illegal operation.
Right.
It has its hub here, and everyone knows that.
Right.
And its ship docks here all the time. But the planet, which is called Grandstand, is just a planet that has its own cities and like economies, presumably, and like people groups and traditions.
Completely, independent of the circus.
Yeah, completely independent of any circus-related activities.
They had to flee here after Titus's Death Star blew up the planet Tip Top. So, I mean, I think it just makes sense to me.
Of course. It makes perfect sense. Anyway, it is sort of a seedy planet, and there's multiple of those, because we're going to go to one later called Jinx, which is also just like, what if there was a planet that was all shitty, like black market stuff? And it's like, I know that's where we came from. But anyway, it's a place where the laws are not as enforced. So the performers, who are all cyborgs, right? It's the Cirque du Bourg cyborg circus. They're basically safe from federal raids.
Whatever.
And another detail that is just sort of sprinkled in there as though it's as normal as everything else is that there are dragons.
Yes!
There are red fantasy, like plastic dragons that just occasionally terrorize cities on Grandstand. They're not not like sci-fi dragons that, I don't know, in some way are reskinned to make them feel more science-y. They are just red lizards with long necks and horns and wings.
This is not a science dragon, it's a god dragon.
Right, this is a magic god dragon for sure. That'll matter later, but for right now it's just like, what? There's dragons? But yes, there are, so enjoy. So we're in Rora's perspective. We'll learn more about her later, but just know for now she's like an acrobat in the circus. All of the performers are filed into a theater where they are then locked in. So the Cyborg Circus, despite being this like sort of tightly knit group of outlaws, has a really strong, really clear power hierarchy thing going on. The cyborgs that work there are very much in conflict with the lady who runs it all. Her name is Celeste, but she mostly goes by the Mistress. And she has like a private paramilitary group that she uses to protect the circus as much as she uses it to terrorize her own employees.
Right.
So it's a very, very hostile, very tense work environment. So they're locked into this theater by her watchmen, which is what they call the guards. I'm probably just going to end up calling them guards a lot, but they're called watchmen.
Her stormtroopers.
Yeah, her stormtroopers, basically. She announces that the circus has been invited to put on a performance before the Emperor. But, you have something, Andrew?
It's just, no, I don't, she says, hello, everyone. We have been invited to the most obvious trap in the universe. And, like, the guy who wrote the law that discriminates against all of you, he says, out of nowhere, we're totally cool now. All we have to do is give him a cool presentation in his home planet surrounded by his army with their guns trained on us. But that's just for our protection.
It's for our protection. He just wants to see our cool trifold presentations about why cyborgs are normal and should be legalized.
Right. There's nothing nothing untoward going on whatsoever, guys. There's just one hair in the soup. A little competition, right, Jay?
That's right. There's going to be a little competition to determine who is actually allowed to perform in front of the emperor. And this isn't just going to be a regular competition where some people will get to perform and others won't. It's going to be a deadly game composed of many trials. Oh my God. What a concept. So there's going to be a deadly game composed of many trials, and anybody who doesn't make it through to the final round, which will be everybody except for 10 acts, will have their implants ripped out of their body and will be basically cast out as humans without, crucial limbs and things.
Right. Or they could die depending on like how important the cybernetic enhancement is. So this is something I was actually really cool with, because it wasn't just we'll shoot you in the fucking head. There's a little bit more like variability to like the ultimate end of some of these characters that get like rejected from the game or whatever. But they have a new crew member to introduce, a sexy crew member with a cool eye and a half-shaven head like Nara in Noah, Man of Destiny.
That's right, and Rora finds herself quite besotted with this individual who she sees on stage. It is, of course, Gwen, and she has been brought on board as the Cyborg Circus's new Cyborg Tinkerer, which is like a doctor. But roll credits. It's like a doctor, but only for cybernetic parts. And
it baffles me that Gwen is the one chosen for this. I think there's some contrivance about, like she was the most accessible and the most like desperate of the ship's tinkerers in the world, because she seems to be a good ship's tinkerer. She's not like a world famous ship's tinkerer. They're just like, hey, mechanical parts on a ship are kind of like mechanical parts on a human blood flesh creature that you can graft things onto. So it's very tenuous. I don't hate it as much as some people seem to, but it just barely works. I don't understand why she's here.
It works if you squint, but it sort of like it sort of feels like if someone was saying in real life that like, oh, being a veterinary surgeon isn't that different if you've been like a human surgeon, like, it's all just flesh and blood and stuff. Like, I don't know. It feels like it's not really aware of the nuances that should exist in its own world, but it's like, again, okay, whatever. We're still like in the early part of like the story. Things are escalating at like a reasonable clip. I almost didn't want to stop and criticize it because I was like, I kind of want to see where this is going.
Yeah, again, it's not the worst thing in the world. I was just like, are we sure? Are we positive about this? So yeah, anyways, continue.
There's a little bit of like backfilled exposition right here where Rora, who remembers the cyborg prohibition law being put into place in her lifetime, recalls how the emperor was able to rise to power by basically creating an other out of the cyborgs.
Right.
He was scapegoating them essentially for all kinds of societal problems, doing a little bit of culture war stuff in order to polarize society against cyborgs and get lots of people on his side. And at this point, whether it realizes it or not, the novel is creating allegories for very real and very presently occurring types of discrimination against, for example, trans people.
Right.
And this is not something that the novel is going to develop in any meaningful way. No. It's just sort of there. Right. And I don't really love that. Especially because as the novel continues, it's really going to make more of an effort to create an analogy between cyborgs and people with disabilities. So, like, it's conflating these marginalized categories. Again, I don't think it means to. I don't even think it's invested in these ideas particularly strongly. But it is there, and it's kind of impossible to read in 2025 and not see it. So I think it's a little bit tasteless. But gotta bring it up because it's very front of mind when you're reading this part where Rora's like, oh, I remember how all of society was galvanized by taking this like very small, very marginalized group of people and treating them as like a threatening and infiltrating other.
Right.
Anyway, the emperor, in addition to passing this law, he decided to destroy all of the infrastructure that would go into researching, developing, and dispensing cyborg technology, both to people who wanted it and people who needed it, say because they had like lost a limb or something. Right. And all of this research, development, and sale had been mediated by one family, the Bellamere family, who will disappear from the plot now until the final pages. So just, I don't know, bookmark that name or something.
Yeah, just remember that name.
In an hour.
Really all you need.
So according to the mistress, again, Celeste, who's on stage at this moment, the Emperor has this new plan to repeal all of the anti-cyborg laws, and instead wants to legalize the industry, but just like tax it extremely heavily in order to, I guess, refill the government's coffers in the wake of this social upheaval that's occurred since he came to power. It doesn't really matter.
No.
But that's why she's like, we can totally trust him. Like, he's definitely going to turn things around for us, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be the dawn of a new age for cyborgs.
Right.
And Aurora is like, oh my god, now's the perfect moment for me to explain my motivation, which is intimately connected to wanting to win the Emperor's patronage and thus secure my status as a famous artist forever.
Right, she really wants patronage, and that's like the first line of her little character sheet that is available for download on our website for $5. But then she sees Gwen. And this is the beginning of the end for her as a character for me, because, I want a patron. I want this opulent life at all costs. And then she's like, oh, hey, Gwen, I want to seduce her. And I also want patronage, but I really want to sleep with this woman. And I'm making like a serpentine motion with my hands because it just kind of keeps going back and forth. And there's no kerchunk to these goals. They just there's a primary goal and a secondary goal, and whichever one is the fulcrum of the scene depends on where we are in the plot.
Well, she treats it like she can't have both. Like, she's always speaking to herself as though these two goals are at odds with each other when they just aren't.
They just aren't. It's just weird.
So anyway, back on Gwen, she was on stage for that thing. She got introduced as the new Cyborg Tinkerer, and we catch up with her now a few weeks later into her new role. This competition hasn't yet properly started, but tension is starting to mount, and that includes for Gwen, who's not going to be competing, right? Because she's not a circus act, but she has been dealing with a lot of tune-ups and stuff as people mentally and physically prepare themselves for whatever the first of the 3 trials is going to be, because they don't really know.
Right.
And she doesn't know what to do when it comes to cyborg surgery either, right? And the novel, to be fair, the novel does acknowledge this. She's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And Bastion and Celeste are just like, well, you got to do it anyway. But Bastion seems like a little bit more genuinely sympathetic to her, whereas Celeste is just openly hostile from the jump. Bastion behaves a little differently in Celeste's presence than he does when it's just the two of them alone. So we're getting hints that, maybe he is on her side a little bit.
He's got a heart of gold in that beastly exterior somewhere.
That's right. His exterior is so beastly, except it's also not at all in any way.
No, right.
It's around this time that we also get introduced bizarrely to this character who I just imagined as the Onceler. I don't know why exactly that's the physical form that he took for me, but he feels very foppish, and he's kind of, I don't know, lanky. He has lanky energy, although later in the book he's described as being really muscular.
Who are you
I guess
talking
that was
about?
Wrong.
Are you talking about Abrakan? You
I
pictured
am.
him as the Onceler?
Yeah, I did. I was like, he seems like the Onceler. I don't know. It just feels right.
He's a little homophobic, misogynist Onceler. I haven't seen the Lorax or been on Tumblr that long, so I don't know if that's what he was like in the movie.
Anyway, he's just like a weird man who walks in on Gwen's workday one time, and he is extremely creepy, sexually, to be clear, and completely unambiguous. And he gives her a rose and is just I'm making my intentions very, very clear, and also I'm definitely evil. And Gwen is like, you're weird and gross. Get out of here. And he's like, oh, I'll leave for now.
Choose your friends wisely.
Yeah, exactly.
Weird guy. I don't like Abrakan. The Onceler.
I don't like anything about Abrakan, including his name, which it feels like she was like, oh, I need kind of a fun name for this magician. What are things I associate with magicians? Oh, the word Abrakan. There it is. It's perfect. We'll call him Abrakan.
The Wandsler
The wand slur.
But slur is spelled SLUR because he uses so many slurs.
He
Wand
uses
slur.
so many lesbophobic slurs, or the same one over and over again, which it's completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Anyway, he doesn't use it in this scene because he's trying to get into Gwen's pants, but he'll use it later many times against Aurora. Speaking of her, we're back in her perspective. She is practicing her routine, which involves acrobatic things like
trapeze,
splits and flips and trapeze, and we're both grasping around for any specific details because the book doesn't fucking give us any. And at no point will it ever, a single time, go into detail about a character's circus act at this cyborg circus, which by rights should be one of the most interesting things about this novel.
Yeah.
I would love to know, like, what cool things cyborgs can do. Like, not just the obvious stuff, like, oh, they can probably lift really heavy weights if they have cyborg arms or something, but also, like, more inventive stuff that I'm not even able to think of right now because, you know, I didn't sit down to write a book called The Cyborg Circus.
It's called The Cyborg Tinkerer, to be fair. Come on, Jay. Keep your facts straight.
So she's doing her routine and she injures herself and she's like, oh wait, I can actually use this to my advantage because I will go talk to Gwen and try to seduce her and get in good with her. So they do that. That's literally exactly what happens. Yeah. Gwen is able to do a patch job on the hand and they exchange this like unbelievably intense flirting that Rora uses to convince Gwen to go to the ball with her because apparently there's a ball happening now and it's meant to kick off the beginning of the trial.
A circus prom. And it's we were kind of like making fun of how like Aurora looks at Gwen and then there's like an instantaneous attraction, but it's completely reciprocal. Like from Gwen's perspective, she's just like, oh yeah, I need to have sex with this woman so badly. It's funny. I don't know what else to call it.
It's funny because it's just so unabashed.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, I am down and ready to clown at this circus.
Shut up. Which is nice. There's no reluctance, which is fun that everyone is just down for it. So they go to the circus prom and it's super crowded. They have to be announced. There's a prominent announcer and it's
a herald.
There's a herald. There's literally a fucking herald and they go through the line, and then Gwen comes up, and I can't even remember how this comes up. She's just like, my name is Gwen, and then the herald is like, is that your entire name? And then she's like, my name is Gwendolyn Grimm. And then the herald is like, are you sure? And then she's like, my name is Gwendolyn fucking Grimm. Sick. And then she walks out and the herald is like, oh, Gwendolyn fucking Grimm. And that's like, oh, the narrative just eats that up. And it's actually a very realistic scene because I clocked that she gets like maybe one or two awkward pity chuckles from people who are clearly uncomfortable, and no one really responds to this, but boy does Meg LaTorre want us to know that her name is Gwendolyn fucking Grimm. Her stupid a fucking name.
It's gonna be a bit. She's always gonna be Gwendolyn fucking Grimm, Miss fucking Grimm, fucking this, fucking that. And I do like the fact that people in the ballroom like don't really laugh, because that is exactly how I felt every single time the narrative repeated this quote unquote joke, where the only humor in it is just she said a cuss word. There's nothing more to it.
It was so untoward. Really she made the herald say a cuss word.
Yeah, so
anyways.
She goes to the ball and she and Rora dance a bit. We meet two of Rora's friends who are in an act together, but they're not in the same act as Rora. Akio and Marzana.
Yes.
Marzana is a trans woman. And the novel is like vaguely weird about this, but in a way that I think it means to be nice.
Yeah,
It's the narrative tries to describe her as like, oh, she's so beautiful now, but it's like kind of patronizing.
I'm glad that you brought this up because, you know, I thought about whether or not I would say much about Marzana because, again, I think here I'm not going to hem and haw about it. I'm just going to read you the introduction of Marzana, and you, listener, and you, Meg, can make your own decision about whether or not like this is good. So Marzana had once been a man named Jared, but her gender and sexuality were as fluid as the waters beneath them. Over time, she'd taken on a new name. So...
God, the dead naming is so gross. We meet these two characters, and they form a little I was going to say foursome, but I just meant like a friend group. They form a little friend group of four people.
Let's not say foursome, please.
Let's not say foursome. We'll get to that. There's some contrivance where Gwen wants to dance with Bastion, right?
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, this circus is dangerous. Yes. You know, you should watch out. You should be my friend. I'll protect you," or something weird. Like he comes off a lot like Abercan in this scene, but not quite as bad. But the reaction is pretty much the same. She's like, "What could be so weird about this evil competition at this circus with this crazy lady called the Mistress who wears stilettos so that she can better punish her cyborg animals?"
Yeah, nothing
all checks out to me.
I don't think anything unbecoming can come of that arrangement. It sounds quite above board. She gets away from Rora to have this conversation with Bastion, and this is going to be the crux of the first like misunderstanding arc that we have between Gwen and Rora, which is such a tedious way to have interpersonal conflict, because Rora is going to misinterpret Gwen having had this private conversation with Bastion right before the first trial is like sprung upon them at a moment when they weren't expecting it, as her scheming with him to like make it happen, or him telling her it was going to happen, and then Gwen not telling Rora. Like she just assumes all of this,
right?
And it's going to lead to tension between them. But in any case, at this moment, Gwen and Bastion dance, and Bastion is like, this circus is super dangerous, like, be my friend, and I'll keep you safe. But also, something is going to happen tonight. Wink, wink, wink. And Gwen is like, I don't know what you mean by that. That means nothing to me.
Right, so I'm just going to assume that you're just full of shit and not do anything about it.
Yeah, right. She just doesn't do anything about it. There's one other detail right before the first trial begins that I want to throw in there about Gwen, because I think it comes up here. So while she's talking to Bastion, she also reveals that her own family was once nobility, but they sided against the Emperor in his war that led to his rise to power. And as a result, they were stripped of their titles and their lands, and they now run like a small business, which is like, what?
What? This is exactly what happened in Summer in the City, where like every character, I'll go ahead and spoil it, every single character is some impoverished nobility that used to be super rich and influential, but then something befell them, but now they're pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. And it is literally every character. I'm not exaggerating. Bastion, Laura, Celeste, Gwen, all four of our quadritagonists have like noble blood to them. And it's just, why all four and why at all? if I have to be honest here.
And it's weird the way that they all have like fallen out of favor with the people currently in power, but are also so preternaturally talented or smart or whatever that they're able to like work themselves back up to prominence. And it feels like a little bit of, it feels kind of American in that way. I don't know. It's like very self-mythologizing.
Yes.
After this conversation happens, the doors slam shut, the guards appear again. The scene is very reminiscent of the one that we like just kind of had in the theater. And the Mistress gets up on a stage and she's like, hello everybody, announcement, we're starting the first trial right now. And it's going to be this obstacle course, essentially. So people, not everybody's going to compete. You send one person in to represent your act, and like they work out the rules that right then on the spot, and it's like kind of weird and like tedious, and like it throws off the pacing.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, everybody's life is on the line, because even if you don't perform, if your act fails, then you will also be stripped of your cybernetic parts and probably killed.
Right.
Rora is the only person in her act. She's a solo acrobatics act, so she's gonna do it for herself. The trial itself doesn't really matter too much. It's just like this really protracted action sequence that's an obstacle course made out of like sets and like theater parts that they're no longer using. Yeah.
I'm interested in this, and again, with a lot of this stuff, I feel like I just skimmed over some very key details, but it's a lot like what I was saying about Handbook for Mortals, where it is just impossible to understand what's happening in
I know
some,
exactly
or
what
like
you mean.
the geography of the scene. Like, so here we are, we're in the ballroom, the mistress is like, sorry guys, trial one time, you gotta go, and then the next fucking thing that happens, sorry, I'm talking like Gwen, the next freaking thing that happens, they're running in this hallway, but there's like a giant chasm, and then there's like icy water, and like where is this icy water chasm? I'm sure there's an answer. Like, I don't think this is necessarily like a fault of the book, but like, where the fuck are they? Where the heck are they?
No, I think it is a fault of the book. I don't think it's a catastrophic fault. I think it could be fixed with some reader feedback maybe. But it's very confusing, like the physicality of every single space. Not only is it just sort of inherently confusing because it's an obstacle course that's meant to be confusing, but we're on a planet that we don't really know anything about. We just got off of a ship we don't know anything about. We're in a city on that planet that we don't really know much about the look of. Right. And we just got into this ballroom that is somewhere in this city on this planet. And now from this ballroom, all of a sudden there's like an icy water cavern and like a rope you have to climb up into some rafters or something like that. And it's like, where in the theater, ballroom, palace, or whatever are they? Right. I don't get it. It feels dreamlike. In its spatial reasoning.
So anyways, they had the stupid thing. There's something about like, it only comes up once as far as I know, but some cybernetic parts are not waterproof, but newer ones are. So some people just straight up die by plummeting into the water. There's no way, allegedly, for a cyborg of this type to tell like what model they have. So they just kind of take the plunge. Literally, Rora survives, and Rora goes through this, and she makes it to the first place, but oh no, Abrakan makes it also at the first place, which means that she doesn't technically win, but also doesn't get executed. So good job, I guess. And now she's really mad at Gwen because Gwen knew this would happen the whole time, and just another great misunderstanding that'll increase the drama so much.
This is also the beginning of a pattern where named characters never die. The people who die in all of these trials are like faceless, nameless cyborgs who are often just identified as cyborgs, not as people, not as humans, not as fellow coworkers or friends or loved ones. Just, there were some dead cyborgs floating in the water. Oh, there were some cyborgs that didn't climb the rope fast enough and then they got killed. And it's Gwen's task to do this like horrible mutilation and extraction of cyborg parts from the people who don't succeed in the trials, whether they are alive or not. And at first she like refuses to do this, which good, I would hope that she would. But the mistress's guards come in and start literally physically beating her with clubs, and it's like weirdly brutal for the tone that this novel is like seemingly trying to establish. And then Gwen just goes through with it. She just mutilates all these people, like ripping off their limbs and presumably also like tearing out their internal organs in cases where that's where their cybernetic parts are.
Well, she doesn't want to get beaten with batons anymore, Jay. I don't understand. Like, she has to do what she has to do.
I mean, I understand her choice to do this. I don't think that the main character needs to be like a morally pure figure at all times. No. But it's just very odd that like she will only reckon with this emotionally in very token ways at random points throughout the narrative. She'll just think, again, in these like broad, abstract phrases like, all the people I've had to kill, all of the cyborgs whose lives I've had to ruin. I am the victim here.
And
it's me. You are a victim, technically, yes, but there's more at stake here than just you feeling bad about the things that you quote unquote had to do, which is
Right.
a trend I feel like in a lot of the books that we read.
Sure.
She does this task and she's not super happy about the fact she's going to have to do it at least 2 more times. But in the meantime, she's a little bit distracted because suddenly everybody that did survive is like, I need a tune-up again, like right now, like a very serious one. But the mistress doesn't allow her to use any new parts. Like she's only allowed to use what's already on hand. And I think she's also not even allowed to use the ones that she's recently extracted. Like she just has to use stuff that's in storage.
Yeah. All the things that she's extracting are being funneled off for a mysterious purpose that surely, I think the crates were all labeled for Act 3 pinch. Anyways.
Right. Exactly. The mistress also has like not given Gwen access to any medical textbooks or cyborg tinkering textbooks, so she's having to learn this all on the fly. And yes, experience.
Okay, you learn by doing, you know.
Right.
It's just crazy. Like, I don't know, there's not like a medical cadaver or something. It's just crazy.
No, it's a very Black Mountain school. You got to get the tissue paper out and toss it all over the floor, and that's how you learn how to do cyborg surgery.
She knows to put someone's belt in the operating person's mouth so they don't bite their own tongue off, which I guess is nice. I learned that from a textbook about ancient Egypt, I think.
She probably saw it in a movie, let's be real. Gwen's overwhelmed with all these orders. She's dealing with stressful shit with the mistress. In the meantime, she manages to clear up this like bullshit misunderstanding that she had with Rora. And then they have this like long conversation to wrap up this misunderstanding, which I'll just skim over by saying it was a long conversation.
Yeah.
And then we get this scene transition where suddenly we're in the middle of like a graphic sex scene between Rora and Gwen, but then we realize it was all just a dream. She did actually clear up the misunderstanding, but the sex part wasn't real.
Great. Because, you know, we haven't had sex in a while, but there's no characters available for Gwen. So to have the sexy quota met, I don't know. There was... it goes back to, not the sex, but my problem with that scene goes back to Rora's motivations, because she says something, and we're in Gwen's head, so there's dramatic irony at play here, but Rora tells Gwen, I trust you with my life, which could be a manipulation tactic or could be genuine because of just the intensity with which this relationship has ramped up and the fact that they vacillate on whether or not Rora's actually manipulative by the scene. So I really don't know what was going on there. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And the novel seems to want us to think that Rora is manipulative, but I don't know how fully I buy that. Because we're going to learn in a minute that the reason that she wants to seduce Gwen is not just because she's attracted to her, but also because she wants to get Gwen to continue developing this like replacement hand for her.
Yeah, she wants a new hand.
That she figures out that Gwen is building because Gwen is attracted to her. And then the book will be like, oh, well, that was the only reason she was ever interested in Gwen was because she wanted this hand. But that can't be true because she didn't know about the hand because the hand didn't exist to begin with. And it's like, I don't understand how to what degree this is manipulation, but whatever. So they have this like fake sex scene, and then Gwen gets a checkup from the mistress to make sure that her new eye is working. And during this checkup, the mistress takes out that chip that Andrew mentioned that's in the back of every cyborg's head. And when the mistress is messing with the chip, Gwen is overcome with this urge to, quote, return to the circus, even though that is exactly where she is.
Right.
And it is extremely obvious in this moment that whatever the mistress is telling Gwen she's doing, I don't even fucking remember what it is that she says she's doing other than giving her a checkup.
I think it's just
that there's some kind of mind control tech being implemented here. Like, it could not be more clear that we are gearing up for, like, oh, the cyborgs are going to be mind controlled at some point.
Hey, well, in the 10-minute video that iWriterly uploaded to advertise her new book, item 3 of top 10 things to keep readers interested in your book is include foreshadowing at the at this part in Save the Cat. When your hero has their second meeting with the antagonist, have a little bit of foreshadowing. So this is just by the books.
It is by the books. It's like paint by numbers for a novel. Okay, so then we get back on Rora for like just a second. She and some other cyborgs are hanging out at a bar. There's lots of aimless talk about having orgies. Abrakan shows up and he threatens Rora and calls her slurs.
Literally.
And that's the end of the scene. Yep. Then we're back on Gwen. And she happens to run into Bastion, who she asks help her gain access to like some books on how to do her job, finally. And Bastion is willing to do this.
Yep.
So what he does is he pulls her into his room so that he can non-consensually pretend kiss her. Now, you might be wondering, why did he do that? And that is because at this point, the mistress has ordered that a couple of her personal guards follow Gwen around at all times.
She gets 3 Liams from Fourth Wing, but the twist is that they're unsexy and kind of creepy and just follow her around everywhere.
And faceless.
And nameless and scary.
Just follow her around everywhere.
Right.
So
but they're apparently prudes. So if you start making out, they just turn their heads away in shame.
They just stay outside the room.
Right.
And this is a very sex-laden universe. So like, I don't know, in the narrative, it didn't feel weird to me that like there was a protocol for what happens if your charge starts having lots of sex. Like, sex is on everybody's mind all the time in this world, so I was like, okay, sure, I guess the guards know what to do if there's sex involved. But zooming out a little bit, it is kind of strange that it's like, follow her and watch her every move. But, you know, if she gets a little freaky with it, maybe back off. We respect that here.
Once they start tongue kissing, it's just closed doors.
Gwen is like, why did you do that? And Bastion's like, well, obviously I'm trying to trick those guys that are following you. And she's like, oh, okay, let's kiss again. And then they do, and it like gets a little bit too serious. And Gwen starts to worry that like maybe she's cheating on Rora, kind of, but like she and Rora haven't had sex or discussed whatever their relationship is. So it's like, you're kind of jumping the gun a bit. But she breaks off the kiss and they sneak out through Bastion's window so that he can take her to a secret library where they quote Beauty and the Beast at each other and then start looking for a book on cyborg surgery.
It's a 3-story
which they do.
Library. Just again with the geography. Like, where the fuck is this?
Where is this? I mean, the cyborg circus is hanging out in some like abandoned palace or something, so I guess it's there.
But it has a pristine library?
Right, yeah, it has a pristine library where the mistress keeps all of her books. So they eventually do find what they are looking for, but Gwen, in the process of reading the first book she finds, realizes she might have accidentally, like, miswired Marzana's foot that she had tinkered on, and it could explode and kill her. So they, being Gwen and Bastion, rush off to try to save them before the next trial starts, which all of a sudden is about to be now.
Right. Yeah, very fast and loose with the timeline here.
So the second trial begins before they are able to get there. And it ends up being all of our named characters go again, basically.
Right.
Except Akio, because him and Marzana are in the same act, and not every member of an act, as I was saying, participates in every trial. So all of our named characters are going to participate in a dragon hunt. Yay, dragon hunt.
This is so stupid. They're like, there's a dragon on the top of this. It's like the threshing or whatever in Fourth Wing. They just have to like walk around, find a dragon. Well, this is a one specific dragon in this case, and bring it back alive. How they are to do this other than like the very specific plan that our heroes come up with resources only they have access to, I do not know. I do not know what Abrakan thought that he was gonna do had things not worked out in exactly this way.
Right, like, and again, the fact that these people have, I would think, like, unique physical abilities that might help them catch a dragon in creative ways. That topic is not entered into whatsoever. Like, they literally give them some spears and shields, and they're like, go get the dragon.
Town,
and it's
buddy.
like, okay. I kind of thought the mistress, like, wanted some of them to succeed genuinely for reasons that are clearly evil, but no, I guess she is like totally indifferent to whether or not they all die.
So yeah, they go on the hunt.
They go on the hunt where we follow Marzana and Rora for a bit, but then we switch back to Gwen, who decides that she's going to insert herself into the trial, even though she's not supposed to, in order to catch up to Marzana and try to save her before her foot does or doesn't explode and kill her and Aurora. Bastion, like, doesn't really want to do this, but he's eventually talked into it as well. So they all eventually do meet up in the dragon's cave, which is like at the top of the mountain. At this point, I'm just imagining, like, literally, like, you know, in a child's drawing, how they might draw a cave as like a little black archway, near the very peak of a mountain.
Yep.
If they were to draw a cave, that is exactly what I'm imagining.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And there's a red dragon inside.
Right.
God, I don't even know. I would love to just skip over this, like, extremely protracted combat sequence.
We can, because I don't want to talk about it either, but there's a couple of things I need you all to know happen. So the dragon displays a level of sapience that is above animalistic. He can't speak English, but, like, Gwyn or Aurora or whoever will talk to it, and it, like, implicitly understands, or does, like, again, Disney animal pantomiming to show that it can comprehend what is being said to it. And then it is a weapon of war without a mind, and just like that. So it goes back and forth there. And, like, so Gwyn, there's some kind of, like, speeder bike chase or, like, skateboard chase. The misogynists are there, and they piss off the dragon. Or no. Rora and Gwyn and co piss off the dragon on purpose so that it burns the misogynist to death, bar Abercan. Abercan's fine, of course. So, because he's a named character.
And his little lackey, Thaniel, is also fine.
So I don't know who they burn, but I don't know who it burns, but it burns someone. Gwyn and Bastion coordinate this thing to sedate the dragon, and then the dragon is sedated, and then it, like, crashes into the forest. Something occurs from this, but basically they just get the dragon.
They get the dragon, and Marzana ends up being okay. Like, she's badly injured, but then Gwen is going to do some surgery on her, and it's all fine.
She'll be fine. Yeah, everything's fine. We're good.
Gwen makes everybody agree to share the victory, so the Abercan, like, because they have to physically drag this dragon, all of them, right? So, like, she's worried Abercan is going to try to be like, oh, it was me, actually. But no, like, they work it out so that everybody's going to tie. So everybody that doesn't die, I think, succeeds in passing this part of the trial. I think the dragon killed enough people that they're all okay.
Yeah. There's this something like weird mechanic of, like, a lottery system that never comes into play, so it's not worth summarizing. So, but there's, like, some of you, even if you, like, don't fail the trial, will be entered into the lottery. But for this specific one, yes, the dragon killed so many mooks that there is not going to be a lottery for this trial.
This next part is so unintentionally funny because Gwen and Bastion then sneak back up into the window in Bastion's room that they initially left through. And at this point, a night has passed.
Yeah.
So you're probably wondering what happened to those guards that were hanging out outside the room. Were they just waiting there the whole time to see if anybody would come out? And it turns out, yes, kind of they were. Because as soon as Gwen steps outside, they're like, hey, you were gone for a suspiciously long amount of time. We're totally taking you to the mistress now. Something was happening. And she's like, nuh-uh. And they're like, you are already being dragged by the shoulders. And she's like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
So they take her to the mistress, and the mistress is like, hey, dude, I warned you that I was going to beat you with clubs again if you stepped out of line.
Right.
And she does. She has her beat with clubs.
3 strike system. So strike 1 is getting beaten with clubs. Strike 2 is the removal of feet, the removal of her legs. And then strike 3 is she gets thrown out and has to live on the street, I think.
Yeah.
So there's a very specific system. The one thing about Celeste is that she loves making up systems and weird, contradicting, intersecting systems of rules that can be broken at any time. Gotta love that about her.
But only by her.
But only by her.
So then, because, you know, there's been another trial, and I wrote in my summary that she spends the night ripping some more cyborg parts out. So maybe some people who survived did have to get ripped apart. I think in addition to Abercan's little group and Rora and Marzana's group, there might have been a third group, and, like, they weren't involved in the dragon fight, so they might have just, like, totally missed out on everything, and they get killed now if they weren't killed before.
Right.
Later, Rora comes to visit, and Gwen then shows Rora this new cyborg hand that she has been working on secretly. So now at this point, Rora is like, oh, I really need to, like, continue showing interest in Gwen. because I want this hand.
Right.
But also, Aurora does just seem genuinely interested.
Right.
So it's weird to me that the hand is being treated as a manipulation thing. Like, I guess I can see how if she was interested, but like she really wanted the hand, so she committed to staying or pretending to be interested, even if at some point she stopped being interested, like that would be manipulative.
Yeah.
But I think her being like, I want this,
right,
is not manipulative, because like of course you would want that.
Right. It's an and thing, not a but thing. Like she wants the hand, and she genuinely is attracted to and romantically likes Gwen. So like what's happening here?
And we know from Gwen's point of view that she reciprocates all of this.
Right. Like I said, like there's no duplicitousness, there's no mismatch of goals and wants. Like they should have carte blanche to just go at each other like jackrabbits, but we have to go through the song and dance of just like, oh, she's being so manipulative. She'll do anything to get to the top. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, we're totally building tension for tension's own sake, because top 3 tips for keeping readers hooked have tension between the characters. They're just, it needs to be there, and if it's there, then you check off one of the things that make book good boxes. And once you hit 11 out of 33 or whatever, now you're book good, officially, quantifiably, numerically, statistically.
It's like how when you're making a new password, how it'll go from weak, good, strong. Like if you check off enough, it'll go through and it'll check off enough of them. She finally got to the green zone, so she was like, okay, this is not easily hashable. So I'm just gonna launch this to the world.
It'll do. So the next morning, Gwen wakes up in Rora's room where she had spent the night, and she wonders if she's being taken advantage of. They haven't had sex yet, which is part of her wondering this. She's wondering if indeed Rora is using her to get the hand.
Right.
You already know how we feel about that.
Right.
Round 3 of the tournament is announced. The circus is going to go from their outlaw, rundown, wretched hive of scum and villainy planet to a separate wretched hive of scum and villainy planet to perform in front of a group of different outlaws.
Right.
And the way that they'll be eliminated in this trial is if people don't like their performance or just feel like it, they'll shoot them dead on stage. Now, that's not how it's presented to us initially. What we initially seem to be hearing is that they're going to vote in some kind of organized way by shooting people dead on stage after they've already performed. And this does, to be fair, this does happen also. But randomly, when they get there in a second, people are just getting shot on stage by these gun-wielding crowds. And it's like, this feels very much like it undercuts the alleged point of this whole trial, which is to make sure the best acts make it through and perform in front of the Emperor.
What were you saying earlier about this book feeling very American? So yeah, this planet Jinx, surely so many exciting new twists will unfold, and it'll be, distinct from the other settings that we've been in, and we'll learn something.
Well, I can tell you this, there is about to be a little twist right now, and that's that we're about to have another misunderstanding between Gwen and Rora. So this one arises when Gwen, Bastian, Akio, Marzana, and Rora discuss whether to cook up some kind of plan to sabotage Abercan's act. Rora decides that even though Abercan is evil, he has tried to kill them many times throughout the previous trials and has just been a bigot generally, she wants to beat him fair and square. So she is like, I don't want any part of this plan, and she storms out. And as she's storming out...
So hold on. Machiavellian Rora, who would stop at nothing to get that patron or whatever she wanted that I've completely forgot about because it doesn't matter anymore, suddenly is like, hey, I'm not going to cheat to slightly disadvantage this man who has tried to kill me at least once and calls me a slur in every single clause that is directed my way. She's like, I wash my hands of this. I'm winning the old-fashioned way. And then she was walking down the hall, and Abercan and his goons are like, hello, slur, we're going to beat you to death. And then she just gets beaten to death, And then Abercan's like, tell us your secret plan or I'm going to crush your robot hand. And, and Rora's just like, hello, sir. Our secret plan is to mislabel the weights that you guys are going to be lifting so that you look silly on stage. Or something stupid. I can't even remember.
Yeah, something that feels like the result of Googling what are circus acts and being like, oh, that could be easily tampered with.
Right. And Abercan's like, thank you, Rora, and pricks her with some kind of like sedative or like attacks
he hits her with
in
a stun gun.
Way. Stun gun, that's what it was. Rendering Rora comatose for the near future.
Yes. And actually, I believe I misspoke earlier when I said that Marzana was at that meeting, because I believe that at this point Marzana has already fallen unconscious.
It doesn't. Yeah, she has.
I think that during the end of the dragon fight, she was rendered unconscious. But she's okay, but she's just out.
Right.
And people are starting to wonder why she's been out so long. But now she's joined by Rora in being out for a bit. Very exciting stuff. Laying horizontally on a table, presumably with a heart monitor just sort of going somewhere alone in a dark room. So Gwen finds Rora unconscious the next morning, alongside this note from Abercan that's like, hey, I know what you're up to because Rora told me everything. From this note alone, Gwen concludes that Rora betrayed them by going directly to Abercan after leaving the meeting, and then was betrayed herself. Right. Yes, voluntarily. She thinks that Rora, like, completely, this betrayed them to this guy who Gwen, I believe at this point, knows has a bad relationship with Rora. Like, she's surely seen at least once Abercan call her a slur.
Right. At least once, but I mean, probably multiple times since he uses it every time he speaks. And I think Gwen says something like, Rora had always been so cold and manipulative. It made perfect sense that she would employ this dastardly Machiavellian tactic in order to get ahead. I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's like, it wouldn't really make all that much sense, actually. Like, she doesn't seem like that. She just seems like a ambitious, horny individual. Yeah, so Gwen, like, freaks out, and she decides that she's gonna skip town. Just sort of like, I'm done with this, I'm out.
Right.
She heads down to the docks, where she starts looking for passage off the planet, and she happens to come across a slave ship, which in this world they call flesh traders, which is pretty cool, I guess.
Sure.
And she learns that the mistress has been selling the performers who have their parts removed to these slavers. The slavers then try to capture Gwen.
Right.
But Bastion shows up in order to save her. Right. This, what I'm describing right now, takes place over like tens of pages. So I'm like trying to keep it quick because this part's very tedious as well.
Oh my God.
Bastion shows up to save her, but it seems that he knows in some capacity the captain of the slave ship.
Right.
It's not quite clear in what capacity, but they seem to know each other. And he is critically injured, but begs Gwen to save the enslaved former colleagues of theirs, basically. But Gwen is like, no,
doesn't.
I think you are too sexy and you cannot be allowed to die. But she swears privately to herself that she will go back and save them as soon as she's gotten Bastion to safety. Well, lo and behold, that was a fucking lie, because the next scene that we have is like the next day where Gwen is in Bastion's room and he's doing better now, but Gwen in her internal monologue is just like, oh yeah, so like I tried to go back or whatever, but the ship had already skipped town, so it was too late. And she's like, I'll go get them, you know, like at some other point, like once we figure out this whole like
Jay,
trial
come on.
thing. No, that's so unbelievable. Like, do you really think that all of these slaves are going to be sold as like a single chunk? To, like, we don't even know who these people are. Right. Gwen has never said their names, so does she know who they are? Like, how is she going to make sure that she actually gets all of them? Like, they're going to be sold off one by one to who knows who. Like, they're not going to be, you know what I'm saying?
Jay, come on. Have you ever written before? In item 2 of How to Write a Series by some other YouTuber, they mention always add little seeds for book 2 so that there's connective tissue between book 1 and book 2. Obviously, book 2 is going to be a swashbuckling, slave rescuing extravaganza. Like I really like your level of understanding of how writing works seems very limited, and it's very interesting to me that you do this channel with this level of knowledge.
I mean, I guess you're right. I maybe have a little bit of an MFA brain. We're not so systematized over there.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, she does not save the slaves. Bastian ends up kind of fine, like better than he was before.
Yeah, he's like, okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
So she examines like his like cyborg parts to make sure that those are all right, including his chip. Right. And when she takes it out, once she puts it back in, he conveys to her that it had the same effect on him that it had on her, where like he was extremely obviously being mind controlled. Like when she was tinkering with the chip, like her messing with it, like activated something in it. And they're like, okay, so we need to find a way to access the chips like on the level of the actual code. And Bastion is like, oh, I know a guy. And in my mind, I was like, this is how you set up a scene where like we go and like do some shady back alley dealing, or maybe we ultimately have to steal this thing. But no, next scene, like they just have obtained a computer essentially to plug the chip into, so that they can examine all of the code. But for some reason, for some ungodly reason, they always refer to the code as coding. Right. Coding as a noun, coding in replace of like code, the mass noun that's like plural but also singular, coding in place of like any other verb that could be conjugated any other way. Like it's always the word coding, and it feels like it's being written by somebody that has never touched a computer before somehow. Do you know what I'm saying, Andrew? I feel like you would know what I mean better than I know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I think it is stupid. It's kind of like runic, where it was like, it just like, why is that the word that you're using? But anyways, so my cop out, and I completely agree with you, I'm just trying to like make a conversation here, is that, you know, like colloquially, if someone was like acting weird, you'd say there's something wrong with his programming or whatever. I think I think she can't say code because that's too mundane, but she can't say programming because that's too computery. But like he was coded to do something. I don't know how to work this out syntactically. It's stupid. It's bad. Yeah, it's but he's got two codings.
He has two codings, plural, sick. They were very obviously written by two different people, and they don't know how to do anything about that right now because Gwen is not a programmer. She can kind of read this stuff, I guess, by having read those books she found earlier, but she doesn't actually know how to fix whatever problems this may or may not be presenting. Right. Aurora is in their group again at this point. She was there for the examination, and for some reason they have this fight where she admits that she was using, quote unquote, using Gwen to get the hand that Gwen was making. This is what I was talking about like way earlier at the beginning of the summary. And the novel doesn't really do a good job of convincing me that like her priorities had so fully shifted. Because again, it seems like she does want the hand, because why wouldn't you? Yeah, but also she likes Gwen. But the novel is like, no, Aurora definitely betrayed and was using Gwen. Right. So they kick her out of their group again. They decide that they're still going to go through with their plan to mess with Abrakan's act, even though he already knows that it's a plan. Gwen is just like, oh, I said I was going to change the weights around, but instead I'll like cut some really uncomfortable grooves in his bowling pins that he's going to juggle or something like that. He'll never see it coming.
Right. It's just so stupid. Like, she and Bastian, they're gonna sneak into the back rooms or supply closet or whatever the hell they're keeping this thing in.
So then Gwen and Bastian share another moment, and there was this really funny line in it that I liked a lot. So the line is, despite the darkness they had shared in the operating room, they had come out stronger, which is a reference to the fact that Bastian has been sitting up with her some nights and watching her take apart the other cyborgs. But like what this line is really saying is basically, despite their shared complicity in this systematized mutilation of a vulnerable people group, they are the male and female leads of a smut novel, so we're obligated to act like we like and enjoy watching them gear up to fuck. That's what's actually being said here, just so we're absolutely clear on that.
Yep. That's a good translation. They've gone through so much together.
They've gone through so much, and aren't they really the victims here? It doesn't really matter, though, because Bastion ruins this beautiful moment by revealing that he is a former smuggler and had indeed like been a colleague of that slaver that they met earlier. So Gwen like runs off again. The next time we see her, we're on Jinx already, and she goes through with this plan to mess with Abrakan's juggling balls by replacing all the glass ones with tinfoil wrapped baked potatoes or something like that. And as she's tinkering with Abrakan's shit, the mistress shows up and is like, hey, Abrakan told me what you were doing. Like, obviously he was gonna, like, why would he not? So the guards break one of Gwen's legs right there on the spot. But Bastion, ever the guy who shows up to save Gwen right at the moment when she's about to lose a fight, sweeps in and saves Gwen at the moment when she was losing this fight, and is like, no, mistress, take me instead. Right. And apparently they had so like she is his boss still, right? But apparently they had some previous arrangement where like he was working more directly under her.
Yeah, like an apprentice.
And she's like, okay, yeah, I'll stop killing Gwen if you resume this former role where you have to be around me all the time, basically. And he's like, oh, I shall. And Gwen's like, no.
This is so dramatic. This is going to completely change their relationship dynamic.
It totally will.
So much.
So, like we were saying earlier, this part of the trial kind of resolves itself when a bunch of people are just shot on stage by a bunch of drunk bozos, quite frankly. But again, none of our named characters die, so who cares? Akio, Marzana's friend, is shot, but he's okay, so it doesn't really matter.
He really tanks that. I'm surprised that I almost forgot about that, because he does get just shot indiscriminately by this crowd. And like, I kind of expected him and Marzana to die eventually, the way like they were being handled, but it's like you said, they have a name and a personality, so they cannot die.
And that concludes the trial arc. So we end the trial arc more or less in the exact same place that we began it from our perspective as readers, right? Because none of the main characters who we were introduced to died. So like this whittling down of performers was a totally superficial, meaningless gesture that was designed to create the illusion of tension. All of the characters are still experiencing the same sexual tension towards each other that they were. We don't know anything more about the mistress's ultimate motivations. We haven't met the emperor yet. If we have moved, it is infinitesimally. We're moving on like geologic time with this.
Well, you know, Rora and Gwen have gone through so much stuff together, so like there's so much fraught like interpersonal conflict there. Okay, that might be it.
Maybe I'll cede that. So the circus touches down on the capital city, and they march through the streets to meet the emperor. On their way, some people like throw rocks and shit at them, so they have some like riot shields that they hold up to protect themselves from being stoned.
They're called umbrellas.
Yeah, they call them umbrellas.
That was kind of confusing to me for a while, because they I don't think they explained that these are like super umbrellas or something. But
they say that they're made of rubber at one point. So stuff bounces off of them, which is like, okay,
I'm rubber and you're glue.
Gwen keeps trying to like catch Bastion at little moments in between events here and there, but like he's very obviously being mind controlled. Like it's so stunningly obvious that it's shocking to me that even in-world characters don't realize this, because he's like, I cannot speak to you right now, Gwen. I am busy serving the mistress, my favorite person in the world.
We should all be serving the mistress. Why does it always have to be mind control? Why does it always
I don't know why it always has to be mind control with these like weird space opera stories.
Whatever.
So they meet up with the emperor. He gives some dumb little speech in the palace and then puts them all up in a bunch of rooms. And at this point, Gwen and Rora notice Bastion going off somewhere. So they sneak out into the stables where they spy on him being tinkered on by the mistress. And as they are spying from the hayloft or wherever the fuck they are, the mistress is like talking aloud to herself and the mind-controlled Bastion, explaining her entire evil plan. She's like, oh, Bastion, my little mind-controlled dear, I'm so glad that I mind controlled you and programmed you to assassinate the Emperor. What a brilliant evil plan that was. And I'm so glad that I helped invent this cyborg technology to begin with, because I am a member of the Bellemere family, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't actually reveal that here. It's like in a minute, but still. Like, it all comes right around the same time.
You're not exaggerating. You're not. I just want you guys to know.
I'm not exaggerating at all, actually.
It's like, talk about like 101 writing rules. Like, this is what you always hear. Never have your villain reveal their dramatic. It's not even like they didn't have like, oh, I have you now, Gwen. So now I'm going to explain my tragic backstory and why I'm so evil. It's like she's monologuing to no one. It's baffling to me. Anyways.
Is especially egregious coming from somebody who billed themselves as like a here's how to write YouTuber. Mm-hmm. In any case, you might be wondering why they were doing this out in the stables. It's because the mistress has a bunch of cyborg animals as well, and they needed the scene to happen here so that we could see that the red dragon that they captured earlier had also been given some cyborg implants and is being mind controlled by the mistress. So there's a dragon in there. There's another ball, and they all go, and it happens.
It's kind of an awkward ball because not a lot of people were invited. Like, I think only the main characters were invited and the rest is like random nobility. Mm-hmm. Something's weird about it, but it doesn't go anywhere. So
Gwen and Rora can't do anything about this new information that they've learned. So they go to bed, but they go to bed erotically, where like they both are like, ooh, we're so sexy and sexy hot for each other, but we're not gonna do anything about it right now, but oh my god. Then they wake up the next morning and they find that the palace is unsettlingly quiet. They kind of wander around for a bit, but nobody is there until they find the Emperor with everybody tied up in a room. Like, they're all lined up, I guess, and he's just got them all, and he's standing in front like he was waiting for them to show up.
Yeah, everyone but them.
And it's because that's exactly what he was doing. He had been looking for Gwen and the mistress, who's not there. And Rora also just happens to be there too.
Right. Yeah, like, so, why didn't they check Rora's room? I don't know. Anyways.
I don't know. So the Emperor is like, hey, Gwen, I'm going to kill you if you don't start working for me. Mm-hmm. And at this moment, Bastian, who had also been tied up, decides to make his move. So I guess like he cuts off his own restraints and he goes in to kill the Emperor. But then Gwen starts fighting him off because she's like, okay, wait a second. Maybe if I do get a job with the Emperor, then I'll be able to like, I'll at least be free of the circus, right? So like I'm maybe a little bit freer than I am right now.
Right.
So she starts fighting off Bastian, but he gets caught because, of course, as you mentioned earlier, Andrew, they're in the Emperor's house, in the Emperor's city, on the Emperor's planet, and it's like full of his army.
Right.
So a bunch of guards just come in and drag Bastian off of the Emperor, literally. And then the mistress steps out from behind like a pillar or something and is like, hello, I am also here. And I've captured Rora while no one was looking. Like, she literally drags her out from behind the pillar too, and like has a gun to her head. And I genuinely don't know what she thought she was accomplishing with this, because again, all those guards, you know, the Emperor's army, the military that he controls, they're still there. So I don't know what she thought she was going to gain by holding Rora, one of her own employees, captive.
But damn if it doesn't work.
She was going to stop Gwen, which that does succeed. She does stop Gwen from killing Bastian, but still seems like a weird plan. At this moment, she's like, okay, hello, I'm actually Emmeline Bellemere, the inventor of cyborg technology all along, also former like CEO billionaire of Bellemere Technologies, and I've been plotting the Emperor's assassination ever since the day that he killed my children, and now you will die. And then the Emperor is like, no. And he sends guards to grab her, and they do. And he then describes his evil plan. He's like, well, let me do you one better. And he's like, okay, now that I have a cyborg tinkerer who is reasonably competent in my control, and I have the lady who invented all the cyborg technology, I have everything I need to engineer a cyborg EMP that I can fire off at every planet that may conceivably have cyborgs living on it and insta-kill all of them.
Yep.
And That's his plan. But then the mistress reveals that all of her private army guards were actually cyborg super soldiers the whole time, and they dramatically rip off the masks they've been wearing, and they're not just like normal cyborgs, like people with metal parts. They're like horrific Lies of P style cyborg puppet robot monsters, and they have like buzzsaws for lips or something like that. It doesn't matter. And they start fighting the Emperor's guys, and there's a bunch of chaos.
Yeah, all the cybernetic enhancements that have been taken off of like the losers had been grafted onto these guys. It's I don't know. Exactly. I don't know the mentality behind more random cybernetic parts makes you a better super soldier, but wow, wouldn't you know it? You know, this whole Cyborg Prohibition Act was founded on the fear that this could be used to make super soldiers with their minds controlled and cause general chaos and murder people. So forgive me if I'm not super mad at Emperor Daddy for what he's done with the world, because if this is the alternative, I'd rather, you know, it's like that one short story where a village is doing great, but there's one little child that gets tortured. You know, if we have to like
those who walk away from Omelas,
I will throw rocks at cyborgs if it means that I'm not attacked by a body horror super soldier in the middle of the day. I don't know.
Right. Like, when you've written the Emperor to be, like, a fascist dictator who draws his power from stoking fear of a marginalized group, you should probably take care not to inadvertently make all of his fears, like, reasonable and correct.
Don't make him right!
Because, like, it's sort of an unfortunate side effect. So there's chaos, like I was saying, and basically the named characters are able to escape. They decide they're going to save the Emperor for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Maybe he'll be nicer, I guess, as a boss. So they split up, and Gwen goes after the mistress, who she catches, and then convinces that she needs to shift her priorities to help save all of the cyborgs, because wouldn't you know it, she may not have her kids anymore, but these cyborgs are her new gosh darn family, and ain't that the most beautiful thing that there ever was?
You can't have some kids without harvesting people's organs and then selling them into slavery. You know,
and ain't that just the way?
The classic American family.
So in the meantime, Rora goes and gets the dragon. Again, my saying that one sentence is covering up like huge swaths of text. She goes and she obtains the dragon.
Yes.
And she laments on the way there that the Emperor wasn't like a man of refined cultural tastes who would have understand her acrobatic arts anyway. She's like, oh, I kind of thought he'd be like an open-minded and arts-loving individual, but it turns out that he was a dictatorial tyrant. And I'm bummed out about that. So she gets the dragon free and like sicks it on the city, but her hand is destroyed in the process, which we're supposed to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Then there's pages and pages and pages of dragon-related chaos. There's tons of characters running and or flying around the city, but eventually the configuration that actually matters is Gwen, Rora, Morzana the Mistress, Bastion, and I assume Akio, although I don't remember what was happening with Abrakan and Daniel at this point. They all end up back on the Cirque du Bourg ship. So all the people we actually care about end up on the Cirque du Bourg ship. They try to fly away, but the city has like this protective force field dome that starts closing over top of them, and it would trap them in. So then Gwen gets on her hoverboard and she's like, I'm gonna find the generator and shut it down. So that's exactly what she does. She goes over and I think lures the dragon into like setting it on fire and or crashing into it or something to destroy it. She's injured a bunch of times, and so like as she's then flying back up to catch up with the ship, she's like blacking out. But thankfully she does make it on okay.
Right. There's a force field though, and the force field, they destroy the force field. Yeah, so they destroy the force field, and then the dragon like goes out of the atmosphere and starts suffocating, and Rora's like super happy about this. But then I guess the dragon ends up falling back and being okay. Or they save the dragon?
They go out and they
trapeze.
I was gonna say they harpoon it, but they like hook it and latch it back into the ship's artificial oxygen and gravity so that it survives.
Yeah, so the dragon's okay if you were worried about that. But yes, all of our heroes escape, which means well, we have some more to get through, but
yeah, we're almost there.
I'm so excited for what's about to happen.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite part. So back in Rora's perspective, a little bit later, thinking that Gwen is unconscious, Bastion and Rora sit at her bedside and argue over who is less worthy of such an incredible, amazing, selfless, sexy person like Gwen. Who are they but mere cyborgs in the presence of this living savior, Gwendolyn fucking Grimm? And they're both like, oh no, I'm less worthy because I pale in the light of her amazing sexual abilities, blah, 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 blah. Then she wakes up and she's like, guys, it's okay. And then they all are like apologizing to each other over like petty
God, there's
shit.
so many fucking apologies, and I swear half of it was stuff we had already talked about. They were talking about like the thing about the who actually narked on the plan to Abercan, which I swear was already apologized for, but they go through it all again. Oh my god, it's
Bastion apologizes for this or that petty grievance, I don't know, failing to save Gwen with sufficient reverence to her sexy hips or something. And they stop everything for Gwen to be like, okay, guys, so here's the thing. I'm in love with both of you. Do you want to enter a polycule with me in the remaining 5 pages of this book? Then, as though the characters that we knew, what little we knew of them, had been wiped away, they all start talking like therapy speak Instagram stories.
Yes.
And setting boundaries for this new polycule that they are beginning, because Rora is attracted to both of them, but only in love with Gwen. Gwen is in love with both of them. Bastion is in love with Gwen and sometimes attracted to Rora, but wants to make sure that he and Gwen have sufficient solo sexy time. And they talk, like I said, using these like therapy buzzwords that Megalator undoubtedly came across on the internet. And then they all have graphic sex.
Yep.
And listen, I was honest with you guys all the way back in Handbook for Mortals when I said that there were several chapters at the end that I just completely didn't read because I didn't think that they would matter. And I was correct. I took that same gamble again. I just didn't read the sex. I flipped until I stopped seeing the word cock. And then I flipped some more just to be safe. And what was happening? Well, the mistress shows up and she's like, hey, I'm actually still a villain. And they're like, okay, well, you're the only villain on this ship full of people that hate you. So you're going to give us our memories back now. And she's like, oh, yeah, I guess I will, because otherwise you're going to kill me. And so they lock her up in the brig to solve that memory thing later. And then they fly off into the, not sunset, into the solar winds. And that's the end of the book.
So there's a couple of things. That is the end of the book. But, you know, I read the sex scene. It's a fine sex scene if you have a stomach for something like that. Something is Rich Shapiro levels of wrong with the last 20 pages of this book, because, like Jay mentioned, personality vanishes. And Bastion didn't come up in the summary because it doesn't matter. I'm not knocking on Jay. Bastion mentions specifically, hey, I am not polyamorous. If we were to be in a relationship, Gwen, I would want you to be my only one. And I'm not going to go into who's right and wrong about this situation, but Bastion is basically like, yes, Gwen, I can have sex with you and Rora sometimes, but as long as it's just with you most of the time, that's good. And then, you know, Rora does that thing. Rora and Bastion, like, almost never interact, so I didn't even know there was a physical attraction there.
Me neither. And
something happens, and this is why I bring up Rich Shapiro. They're sitting in the cockpit or the bridge or whatever, plotting their next adventure, and they're like, oh, we're outlaws now in, like, super duper big ways. We're gonna need new names. And then they all look to Gwen, their lord and master, and Gwen is like, Bastion, you will now be known as Adam. And then she points at Rora and she's like, you will now be known as Aurora, thus cementing their, like, status as, like, possessions of Gwen, stripping any of their personality and history away.
Yeah, and Rora, if I remember right, even comments upon what a brilliant selection her new name is. And she's like, wow, Gwen, I couldn't possibly have thought of something like that. I'm so glad that I have you to name me and give me my identity.
It's really gross. It's really gross. Bad.
I feel like if there was going to be something like really problematic about the relationships, it would probably develop in book 2. Because it does seem like we're setting up an uncomfortable power dynamic here that I don't think the book is actually interested in like investigating or critiquing. I mean, it's gearing itself up to be such a wish fulfillment thing from the perspective of Gwen, who of course the reader is expected to be projecting onto.
Right.
That I feel like Bastion and Rora's agency is going to completely disintegrate in the face of making sure that like Gwen receives sexual pleasure and gratification. And if I were to prognosticate /augur /scry /oraculate now, I would think that it's very likely there would be a whole sequence of misunderstanding and like boundary redrawing arcs.
Misunderstandings, you say? That's new.
And they would always resolve with like, oh, Gwen, we're so sorry that we didn't love you sufficiently. We're so sorry that like we didn't just communicate because like you're so pure and wonderful, and like who are we even to be worthy of your love in the first place, so like we'll figure it out. And that would be it ad nauseum. If I was gonna guess, none of that actually happens, just to be totally clear, but that's what it feels like it's potentially leaning towards.
Wow, so that is the debut novel of a woman I watched ad nauseum while I was learning the basics of craft. Well, you know, I was like a creative writing minor, so like I had other lectures before, but like it really is weird to lay it all out like that. You know, I'm not gonna be like I was never expecting iWriterly to be this phenomenal writer or whatever. Like I said, you know, the content she made was just very basic entry-level stuff. And I don't know anything about the whole controversy about like whether or not she was a literary agent in real life, or I saw a Goodreads review mentioning something about her buying positive reviews. Don't know anything about that. But this alone, there's a lot to talk about, so I think we'll just start talking about it.
Let's do it.
Oh boy. What do you think of Belle?
Bastion asked. As my name? I like it.
But it's nowhere near as beautiful as you are.
Rolling her eyes, she swatted him on the arm. He tapped his chin.
I think I shall call myself Beast for my good temperament.
That's a terrible idea.
What would you recommend?
She thought for a while before she eventually said, What about Adam? He kissed the tip of her nose before pressing his lips to hers.
That's a fine name.
Turning to Aurora, Gwen said, And what about Aurora for you? It's different enough from your name, but close enough to remember. Sliding an arm around Gwen's waist, Aurora said,
I love it.
In a universe of people who hated them for what they were, they'd become each other's family. As it turned out, she wasn't the worst Cyborg Tinkerer after all. As her ship soared atop atmospheric waves, sails blossoming in the solar winds, she realized she didn't fear what was to come. Instead, she embraced the adventures of the unknown. Who knew? Perhaps one day, the galaxy would once again see the marvels of the Cyborg Circus.
Yeah, the Cyborg Circus that everyone notoriously loved and was not murdered in. I love the nostalgia that they have for this.
Right? This thing that, like, they barely even participated in.
Right? That's a good point. A lot of these guys were non-combatants.
If this takes place over the span of months, then when's the last time Aurora actually did an act? There's one scene where Bastion is, like, doing his, like, ringleader duties, and all he does is go out on stage and announce who's about to come out next. Mm-hmm. And later, Gwen is like, he's just so perfect as a ringleader. It's the ideal position for him. It's like he didn't do anything.
He really is nothing like a stereotypical ringleader, which I don't know if is a bad thing, but I felt like I should have mentioned. Oh well.
All right, Andrew. It's kind of a heck of a summary, to be honest, for a book that, I don't know, going into it felt a lot less serious than Age of Scorpius, but that still ended up being long. So anyway, we must surely, in all of that, have found a couple of good things to say. Would you mind sharing your generosity? That is, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're a very generous person. So nowhere near the generosity of Gwendolyn Grimm, but it'll do for now.
It sure is voicey. You
sure
know,
is voicey.
I sure has a distinct voice.
Say more about that. How would you characterize that voice?
Well, I'll tell you in terms of what I wish. I wish we used the word fuck less, and I wish specifically that we didn't compare things to tits as much, especially the tits of certain people or certain body types that are not conventionally attractive to create an unfavorable comparison, but boy, do I know when I'm reading Gwen's POV, because if I hear about an unattractive fucking tit, that means that old Gwen is talking to me.
Yeah, this might be the voiciest book that we have read yet. Unfortunately, I do think that you could easily replicate this voice by just being a millennial and saying fuck a lot. It's, no one has wanted to do it because it's something, but it is distinct.
Right. It's distinct. Okay.
I have to say, I thought it was kind of refreshing, and maybe this is just in the context of the types of books we've been reading recently, but to have a story that gave us solid stakes right off the bat.
Yes.
Again, you could undercut this a number of ways. You could say like, oh, well, the brain tumor thing doesn't even really matter, but we have this brain tumor on page like 1 or 2, and Gwen is, her inner world is consumed with dealing with the repercussions of this.
Right.
And like on a very fundamental level, I think that a lot of stories we have worked with could benefit from that kind of direction straight off.
I fully agree with that. I actually like a lot works with Gwen. The problem is always like the connective tissue or the through line. We'll get to that in due time. However, I completely agree. The stakes, especially in the beginning, are perfect, in quotes.
They're like a perfect execution of the thing I think you often get taught in like an intro level creative writing class. They tell you to make sure that the main character's motivation and the stakes are clear on page like 1 or 2.
Right.
And that the character is concerned with them and is taking steps to like resolve or deal with them. And so it is the kind of thing that like you would write if you were trying to like make your teacher happy, or if you were if you consumed and digested all writing advice through like action items.
Yeah, you know, it checks boxes. But I genuinely do have like 2 things that directly relate to like, especially Gwen and especially the stakes at the beginning. I loved her nihilism and sex addiction in the beginning. It wasn't very pleasant, but I perfectly understood the kind of character that she was. It made sense that someone in her situation would act the way that she did. So it was really cool. It's a shame that she stops dying, because that was such like a good juicy plot point to keep her narration going, but whatever. The other thing is directly related to Gwen. I loved the setup and the moral question of, should Gwen become a cyborg? It's almost like philosophical. You could either die or live as a social pariah and give up your world. What makes life worth living? There's a lot endemic to this one question that can absolutely sustain a novel and is very interesting to be presented to our character here. So I think Act 1 is really good, actually.
I also like the nihilism aspect of her character at the very beginning too, because I think it's like a state we don't see characters in a lot, at least on our show here. We don't see characters, unless they're Rich Shapiro characters, I suppose, like slipping into this more meditative mode where they're trying to figure out like, what does it mean to be at the end of life? It's like kind of serious in a very real life way. That doesn't really get represented often in the same book, where Grimshaw Malveer and Oro Ray are like flying above an artificially created battlefield and shooting gold and black lasers at each other respectively. Like there's something much more grounded about Gwen just thinking about her own death. That is good initially.
A lot of bad reviews mention the first chapters in particular, but I don't know. Other than her being annoying and this generally not being a book that I want to read, I think things are working, you know? Credit where credit's due.
There are things that are working. I have to agree that like if I was just reading this book as a person, I would have put it down the first couple pages, because I don't like the voice and I don't like the steampunk stuff.
No.
Or I'm indifferent to it, I guess. But, you know, from like a literature analysis perspective, you have to acknowledge that there are things that are working. Like, for example, I think it's pretty cool that she thought about the repercussions of cyborg animals, at least a little bit, because that was a question that immediately came to mind for me. It was like, okay, if there are cyborg people, are there also cyborg animals? And there are, not just the dragon, but also the mistress has a couple others that don't really come into play too much, but they're mentioned consistently. And that speaks to me of the seed of an idea that could have been developed a little bit more, but I like that it is there.
I like that it's there too. I would not have put cyborg animals in this section, although it does show up later for me. She's great at setup. I mean, Meg is. This whole book has a lot of great setup of things. I'm sorry, I do kind of just completely disagree about the cyborg. I was trying to save this, but like, I really don't like the cyborg animals. Or I think the fact that it's cool as a concept or like interesting to be brought up makes it all the worse that she didn't follow up. I was trying to be diplomatic, but I just can't. And I trust you too much.
I see that.
I'm sorry. And the way that they handled the dragon, where like sometimes it was a sapient creature deserving of respect, and other times we shoot at it to piss it off so it kills people that we don't like. It could be read from an animal rights perspective very poorly. So
it could. I was thinking about bringing that up, like the way that, again, like they rescue the dragon, like they recognize that it has some kind of sentience, but also they use it as a tool,
right?
And they don't seem concerned with like the ethics of it being rendered a cyborg. It doesn't get the same consideration that the human characters do. So yeah, it's inconsistent, its application of like animal ethics, but whatever. I was just looking for something that I liked to put in the positives, to be honest with you. I could just as easily have put this in the negatives or in like the things I'd like to see change section, because of course I'd like to see this expanded a lot.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of true with anything. Back to squarely good things. In general, this book did a good job of glossing over things that I don't care about. And I particularly mean like circus acts. I think I've already mentioned this in the summary, but something that I was talking about in Handbook for Mortals is like, I never understood a magic trick. There was always like something where we were bolted to the seat and we had to watch this description of a thing that I barely understood in the first place. We have it one time in the beginning where Gwen is like gaping at the circus. And from then on, it's just like, okay, they're a circus. Like the interesting things about a circus are the social dynamics. One of my favorite short stories is my last attempt to explain what happened with The Lion Tamer by Brendan Matthews, and it's kind of a very similar vibe where like all the workers in this circus are just like bitter, sexed up freaks who hate each other and have sex with each other at different turns. So I like that Meg didn't jangle keys in front of our baby face with like the spectacle of a circus, basically. And I that's not backhanded. Like I genuinely would not have wanted to see that even executed well.
Yeah, I didn't really care for it in Handbook for Mortals either, where it's just like protracted descriptions of characters like doing flips, or lots of light effects happening, because it is interesting to imagine that, unfortunately, as interesting it is to watch. So you're right that it does like kind of skip over that stuff in a way that I think is positive. I have to disagree, though, unfortunately.
We were just going to fight this whole time.
Because I would like to see the characters' acts represented in like things that they do that are not within the acts themselves. That's fair. You know what I'm saying?
They trapeze and they tie up the dragon, and I don't know. They kind of do it.
It would be corny, but it would at least be like, I see what you're trying to do. If there was a scene where somebody like, I don't know, grappling hooks an opposite cliff face, and then they have to tightrope walk across. Sure. Something like that. You get what I'm saying. Yeah. Or if juggling suddenly had narrative relevance. Right. And the fact that like the circus acts don't come into play and the characters don't ever use their circus skills to do anything cool makes me think that like the circus could be swapped out for literally any other traveling group of outlaws, including the far simpler just pirates. And then the like quote unquote performance that they would have done for the emperor could have just been a fucking meeting, to be frank. Like, because again, they don't perform in front of him, so it never matters in the end.
Holy shit, they never perform in front of him. I'm just now realizing that. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta stay positive. We gotta stay positive. Come on.
There's some cool imagery. Since I talked about the animals a second ago, I have one final thing to say about them in this section. There's a moment of cool imagery where when we're in the hayloft spying on the mistress and Bastion and the cyborg animals, Bastion is in his own pen. Like all the animals are split off each other by pen, and Bastion is also in a pen. It's like, oh, it's a little on the nose, I know. Yeah. She's like he's one of the mistress's animals, just like all the others. But it's like, okay, there's metaphor here.
Yeah. And
you can't take it for granted.
That's cool. No comment. It plays into his characterization as a beast, or his day Meg's brain characterization of Bastion. So I don't know. Yeah,
is that a riff on de facto?
Yeah, I was going to say de facto, and then I was going to say de jure, but that neither of them really apply here. So I am a sucker for dramatic irony. So I really ate up in the beginning how Gwen and Rora both think that they're seducing the other. That I'll talk about things that could have been cool. Like, a lot could have been done with a situation where like both characters think that they have the drop on the other, or that they're seducing the other. You know, Rora's like, oh, I have to seduce this lady, and then in the next chapter Gwen will be like, oh yeah, Rora's eating out of the palm of my hand, I still got it. And it's like, I don't know, it's kind of fun seeing that back and forth. I loved the twist, how the performers lose the competition, their contracts are terminated, which means that they have like their cybernetic enhancements ripped out. Every part of that is really cool, and every part of that makes perfect sense. Mostly, you know, the parts are company property, so it's like this social commentary, or kind of like this, I don't know what you would call it, like capitalism horror or whatever. It justifies Gwen being there and existing, but also gives her stuff to be angsty about. It does that thing in Divergent that I think I was talking about, where like if someone loses this competition, they don't die. There's not like mass genocide, or they don't get shot. Right. Like if Rora lost the competition, the story could continue. And I think that's become my new barometer for like whether or not I care about a deadly game or a deadly situation. Is this literally just a binaristic output of just either live or we die, which I guess is life in general, but like let's zoom in really quick.
No, I get what you're saying, because it's much more interesting if there is a chance a character will survive the lose condition, because if there's the potential that they can survive, then we don't actually know what will occur should they lose, and it means that there's more ways that the novel could branch and that the series could branch, but it also means that it's just ambiguous, which is inherently scarier because it's less certain. Right. Certainty is almost always less scary than uncertainty. And fear or anxiety is exactly what you want, both for the reader and for the characters in this situation. So it's all around productive to have the characters be able to live.
Someone has their cybernetic legs ripped off and then gets sold to slave traders is a story. Someone gets shot in the head is not a story. So, I mean, I'm kind of saying the same thing over and over, but thumbs up, good job. Like, I think this deserves credit, because for as much as the narrative careens, I think calling out these like points where I actually care about what's happening is important.
Speaking of horror, there is a really good moment right at the beginning where when Gwen is about to undergo surgery, she learns for the first time that she can't be anesthetized. And it's like as the doctor is like lowering the buzzsaw to her head, and it tees up a really cool moment of body horror that, you know, unfortunately it doesn't really go in on as much as I would like, but I was not expecting it, and in a really good way. I was like, oh, this is kind of intense. And also it makes sense that she can't be anesthetized. Like, I get the logic of this, and it's cool to imagine it.
Right. I loved the body horror way that cyborgs get created. To keep arguing with you for the sake of content, I thought the level of body horror was just about perfect. It could be ramped up a little bit, but like, I was very thankful that Meg didn't just shove my face into some gruesome surgery and describe like the blood squelching as her guts were ripped out a million billion times and we stapled.
Oh, the hyper-realistic blood everywhere.
It's like, I don't care. Like, it's the same thing with the circus act. Like, there's certain things that are spectacles when they're visual that just do not work in the written form in any kind of concept. And I think body horror is more or less part of it. It works so much better by implication, especially in the written word. Obviously, implication in horror works better in movies too, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Like, the point is, like, I don't need to see the hyper realistic blood or have it be described to me to care or think it's disgusting in a good way.
There's like a cool moment where once she's got her eye, Gwen, so she has x-ray vision with her eye, which I don't think I ever mentioned in the summary, because again, it doesn't ever really get used for anything notable or cool. Like, I think at one point she notices that somebody's carrying a weapon or something, but like, of course they are. Everybody's a swashbuckler in this world. They've all got freaking weapons. It's basically like TTRPG land.
Yes.
But she notices that the mistress has like little tiny blades underneath her fingernails. And then lo and behold, later on, the mistress does have like these extendable claws.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you said, it's a good setup and a good payoff, and it's a cool thing.
Right. Writing points all around. A lot of writing points trying to add up to that big passing score. Well, since the well's running dry, I kind of want to talk more meta about this book, because I feel like a lot of my relationship to this book and my opinions of this book are more meta-textual, because, I mean, come on, you were there for the summary. It is not lost on me that a lot of the top 1-star reviews, the top reviews on Goodreads, are 1 star and proudly state that they've only read the first couple chapters or like the sample chapters or something.
I noticed this as well.
Like I said, not a reflection of the book's quality, but like, you just weren't dealt a good hand with this entire experience, Meg, and that really sucks. And I have more opinions about that, but like, for right now, I don't think that you should read 2 chapters of a book, even if you hate it, and say, hey, I only read 2 chapters of a book, I'm going to rate this 1 star, and post a bunch of GIFs with the office of my reactions.
It was a lot of people like really smugly saying, A, I didn't read this, and B, how ironic that a how to write YouTuber wrote a bad book. I'm the first person to notice this. And I was like, this is a really, really useless review section.
Yeah.
Like, very little of value is being said. And it seemed like a lot of people also just had gut reactions to the voice and maybe liked her content on YouTube and were like, I feel personally betrayed by this. This is not what I wanted. And so I'm mad.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, that's not really a good metric by which to review a book.
Right. And, you know, I want to add some asterisks to this. You can absolutely tell if you're not going to like a book from page 1, the first word, whatever. I'm not saying that, like, them reading the chapters and then deciding they hated it was, like, the wrong thing to do, or reading the book wrong. But there's some line, and I don't even know exactly where the line is, between reading a couple chapters of a book and DNFing it and then giving it a 1-star review. I am the biggest proponent of a 1-star review in the world. I am not someone who says if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. Like, if we live in fear of giving 1-star reviews, then we're never going to save this thing of ours. But there was just something in the smugness, and I want to add my voice to that, saying I am sorry that happened, because that sucks. It sucks.
It does suck. And it sucks especially because, like, how can you critique the smug voice of this book and then smugly be like, but I am smug in a better way? Right. It's like, all right, sure, buddy.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this book is good, but it's rough. But yeah, so sorry, Meg, that's about all I have for you with this section.
Ditto. Let's move on. I need a favor,
Gwen said. Why should I do anything for you? Rora demanded. You wouldn't listen to me before.
Because I can give you what you want most in the world.
Oh? And what's that? Gwen exhaled heavily.
Me.
Hey, nothing like having a good opinion of yourself. All right, Jay, so we got to zoom back in, focus squarely on the book. We've laid out the things that this book has done well, the strengths and the writing points that we have been awarding. How about the writing demerits? Do you have something that maybe fell short of the mission of this book?
I do, and I think it's going to sound like it's in direct contradiction to what I was just saying about the narrative voice. Because I think that it is just totally sauceless. Like, it's smug, which is technically a feature, and it uses a lot of curse words, and it's often preoccupied with sex. But if you strip away those three things, like, what is the narrative voice of this story? Like, I think it would sound like the Our History page of like a corporate website. Like, it has no pop, it has no zest, like it's boring. And I think that the cursing and the sarcasm and the sex are ways of disguising that fact.
I agree. Stop saying fuck. I'm so fucking tired of everything just having the word fuck in it. And this is something I said for Age of Scorpius too. It just feels so juvenile. I didn't mind the smugness though, and this is weird to talk about because it's a multi POV close third kind of deal. So I'm really just kind of talking about Gwen. Roar is a whole other kit and canoodle. Oh, that's kind of a funny Freudian slip. Because canoodle is like having. Anyways, yeah. Anyways, I'm talking about Gwen here. The smugness. It was 2020. I would be okay with like a smug, nihilistic Richard and Mortimer kind of voice. Like, I think that's something. And again, it goes back to what we're saying. Like, I don't need to like it. I just think it's kind of contrary to this book's mission. A little bit of like, there's something very artificial about it. And I kind of wonder what would happen if we just start by cutting out all the fucks and gratuitous sexual stuff. See where it goes and maybe accordion that, because I don't think it's far from something that would be serviceable. Again, even if I wouldn't like it, but
I wonder if it would even be functional without that. Like, what would go in the space?
Descriptions, Jay. Descriptions.
Do you think that Meg has it in her?
Why not? Why not? If she can be a YouTuber and be work in a literary agency, surely she can describe things that don't equate them with things. Deflated tits, and I quote.
God.
So anyways.
What was she trying to do with that?
Well, we do have to hem and haw about this because this is supposed to be a crass, irreverent, snarky romance. So you're suggesting excising things that are part and parcel with this book. I don't.
So you think this is like a genre expectation thing, that it just has to be like that?
I just don't want to be prescriptivist here because you and I both hate this kind of book inherently. So I don't want to be like, this is not what I like, therefore it needs to be changed. I think there has to be some squaring the circle or middle ground that we can find here. Because again, this is supposed to be these things. We just don't like the extent and badness of it.
Right. If your suggestion is peel back a little bit on that stuff, I could agree with that, I think. I also think that I would urge Meg to wonder why she is writing in this particular voice, like in service of what is that? And is it just a default that she's absorbed from stuff that she reads? Because if it is, then she might find that she's better served by doing something that's a little bit more original to her.
Sure. So in this book, more things are inconsistent than are not. So I really don't know where to start with the unmooring feeling that this book gives me, but something that I can talk about concretely with the whole premise that we start with is the circus is ostentatious and colorful and exciting sometimes, and secret and underground and hidden at other times. And I know that there's outlaw planets or whatever, but that's stupid. And literally the feds attack it. So like, wasn't a good plan anyways. So just pick a side. Like, I don't have a implicit suggestion here. Like, just do something with it. But I think there was a desire to have this grandeur and allure and also this like grimy underbelly thing that never quite squared.
I think it wants to be like a seedy touring county fair type of thing, but it also wants to be like a grand European Cirque du Soleil type of thing. And both of those are not the same. So like it has to be one or the other. And that ties into something that I was like really puzzling over how to express. Because the like two balls that they have both stand out to me as like deeply aesthetically wrong. The first one more so than the second one, because again, we have these like grungy, sometimes outlaws returning to a planet that they like semi-rule, or at least their boss like seems to rule this one city, and they stay in like an abandoned palace. And then she's like, let's have a ball. And then they all get into like finery, and some of them even have like actually legitimately really nice clothes, which I was like, well, where are they getting that from? I thought that they were like basically her slaves. Like they're being paid, but like, you know, they can't leave and their bodies are owned by her, but they all have like ball gowns and stuff.
Right.
And that felt like it was ripped out of like the expectations of like a romance fantasy story, and it didn't fit. I was like, this should be like a rager or like a mosh pit or something. They should be fucking up this like palace and like smashing out the windows, and then she can get mad or whatever. But like these are a bunch of outlaws who have just come home from a long tour, and like they're all really horny and angry. Right. So like, why are they not doing a bunch of like cool drugs and stuff, to be frank? And then when they have the ball that the emperor puts on, we can have like a fish out of water moment where they're like, oh, the emperor gave us these like nice clothes and they don't fit so well, and like we're expected to waltz and we don't know how to do that. And you know, then it would explain how the circus can exist in both of these types of settings, whether grungy or opulent.
I love that so much. It's the Zenith problem where they're supposed to be space pirates and then they love pretty dresses and know all the etiquette of all the balls. There's a huge incongruity there. So yeah, do that. Jeez. Because that you can keep that weird like stoner nihilism thing that Gwen had going on in the beginning, even without the brain tumor drama going on, by having her in this constant state of partying in a rager, just like doing random designer drugs. That's really cool. I want to dwell on Rora, even though we've talked about her at length already. I think she is, if nothing else, like the weakest point of this, because she's supposed to be this like tritagonist that is important to the novel, but there's nothing consistent about her character. It's like with the circus, it can't decide if she's a schemer or just yet another one of Gwen's paramours, and it doesn't display this contradiction in a way that makes me think that it knows what's going on. It's just like nothing about Rora's character is working. I could literally say anything and it would be applicable there.
She's like really hard to follow, like her motivations, I mean, because like again, she has these two primary motivations, and the book acts like she's pursuing one of them disingenuously, except for when she actually is pursuing it, in which case it seems like legit. I'm talking about her attraction to Gwen. Like, is she scheming or is she actually like interested in something? Because it seems like both.
It is literally both. And it's not like
I don't get it.
It's both in a contradictory way, not in a way that like would make sense. I don't know. I'm frustrated because this is like the easiest little problem in the world. It shouldn't be such a big deal that Rora is a schemer and also attracted to this woman, but the way it's implemented in the novel makes it such a glaring contradiction or glaring issue that it really doesn't sound as bad as it looks in the book.
It's like creating its own problem. It's like implying that she can't be both of these things when like she totally just can. I don't understand why it like is so hung up on this. Speaking of Rora, we just really need to stop commenting on her skin tone, and this goes for Bastion as well. Rora is black, and Bastion is, I guess I don't know if he's of Arabic descent, but that seems to be the implication. Like, there's no earth in this world, but like that's kind of the idea.
Sure.
And it's just really uncomfortable the amount that like their non-white skin is at times compared to food and then like called extremely beautiful. And like I know some people are probably gonna buck against me, like sort of implying that like you shouldn't call people beautiful in like a specific way, but it's just that like it's just an unfortunate fact of like the society that we live in. Maybe if like we didn't have histories of oppression, then we would be free to do this without drawing in like unwanted associations. When you compare non-white people's skin colors to food, and when you consistently comment on like how beautiful you find it, it just becomes uncomfortable. And I'm being sort of vague with my language because I don't want to like allege something about Meg LaTorre, because I don't think that she means anything. I think she's just being very careless. And it would be easily cut.
It is a very common piece of writing advice, actually, for writing with regards to sensitivity. That, unironically, I think is like number one on the list of like, hey, avoid these things to not unintentionally sound racist. And number one is don't compare skin color to food, or especially exotic food, and go into depth about why they're so enticing. The rules of this competition are stupid and arbitrary, which I know is kind of the point, but I just it is ejecting. It is ejecting. Talk about like where the stakes are effectively conveyed. This is a place where I don't care what's going on, because the top 10 are fine, but then the bottom 10% get like eviscerated. But then there's also a lottery system which only activates when a certain percentage of cyborgs survive the trial, but we never see the effects of like what happens when your number is drawn in the lottery. So it's just like,
this problem is magnified so much by the fact that no one who is ever actually threatened by these systems is somebody that we know. Like, all of the cyborgs that are not named characters are just this faceless mass, and the novel will use them to try to get us to feel sympathetic for them as a marginalized group, but then it'll also just like kill them wantonly,
right,
to artificially raise the stakes. In kind of like a Fourth Wingy Ramparty way, where it's like, and then a million billion people fell off the rampart and they all died.
Right. It's definitely a diminishing return situation.
We need more named cyborgs that characters actually care about, so that when Gwen like is forced to operate on them, we have to confront the reality of what she's doing, and not have what we have now, which is these scenes where she's just like, oh, woe is me, I'm being forced to do this thing, I have literally no choice, I hate that I'm doing it, and I promise that someday I'll make it up somehow, but in the meantime, I'm the victim here.
Right.
And so is Bastion for having to watch me do it. The cyborgs are clearly an allegory for some marginalized group, but it's not clear which one. And also, the fact that they all turn out to be like soldiers that can be activated by mind control later kind of implies that the oppressors have a point.
Right.
But also, part of the thing that makes cyborgs is that they can choose it. Like, it's not a fact of your existence the way that people are often discriminated for in real life, right? Like, you can't choose your sexuality, you can't choose your gender, you can't choose your race, you can't choose your level of ability. And some cyborgs also can't choose to be cyborgs, but some can.
Right.
And I think I know exactly what is happening here, and it is that Meg LaTorre wanted to create an analogy for oppression. End of sentence. And she didn't think about the fact that that is fucking impossible. Because there's no such thing as just oppression generally. All oppression is a product of the time and place in which it's occurring, and the people who are doing it and to whom it is being done. And so, like, if you're going to write an allegory for some kind of oppression, you have to be specific about what group you are metaphorizing, because otherwise it becomes a mess and people will misread it. Like, if I read this as an allegory for transness, it is extremely transphobic. And if I read it as an allegory for disability, it's extremely ableist. And I don't think Meg LaTorre is categorically either of those things. No. But, like, you have to realize that when you write a book like this, cyborgness is historically often an allegory for transness or for ability. And you have to realize that you are writing in a world where that tradition exists. You can't just write this book and be like, okay, well, everybody read this with a blank slate.
Right.
Because they won't, and they can't. They're influenced by all of the literature that's around them in their culture, even stuff that they haven't actually read. Like, I haven't read that many books personally where being a cyborg is an allegory for being trans or disabled, but I have read a couple, and I know that there is a broader tradition out there, and I'm going to bring that knowledge to this book. And so, like, that's why you just have to be specific when you do something like this, because it's impossible to be like, oh, I'm just writing an allegory for all oppression. Like, there's no such thing as all oppression.
I really don't know what even the intent was behind this character detail of Bastion, where he is implied to be suffering with some sort of ED. It just feels completely wrong-headed. Gwen notices offhandedly that he doesn't eat. She, like, comments on his weight at one point. It gets treated like an incidental character detail, like something on a character sheet, and then it's treated as a flaw that can be overcome if Gwen just says, and I quote, there's no point in helping you if you can't learn to love yourself.
She's like, oh, I'm gonna tough love him out of this.
Right. So I don't know what you were even trying to do other than represent the fact that men can suffer from eating disorders as well. And I'm stumbling over my words so much just because, like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know. It's baffling that this was included in the book. I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't do it, but, like, don't treat it like this random character detail that we're not even going to touch on more than a couple conversations.
Right. And the way that she's just like, hey, chin up, Buttercup, you know, you'll get over it.
Right.
You just gotta stick to your druthers and take care of yourself, man. Like, come on. It's so insensitive and weird. And I mean, I gotta be honest, like, this is not something that I have a lot of experience reading or writing about, so I don't really think I have much more to say about it other than what's already been said. But, like, this is definitely not the way to handle it.
Yeah, it's not the way to handle it. Other people have commented on this online, so, like, I just didn't want to make it sound like we were excusing it in any way.
Yeah.
It's really messy. Meg, you would either need to completely reassess why you have this included, or preferably, in my opinion, take it out. I just didn't want you guys to think that we thought this was remotely okay to include.
Yeah, I think just cutting it out is the way to go, because like you said, it's treated like a bullet point on a character sheet, and like if it got erased from that character sheet, I don't think anything about the story would actually change.
No.
Except that it would be better for not including it.
Right.
To move on into a slightly less high stakes topic, this book has actually a very similar problem to Age of Scorpius, in that so few of the environments are visually clear in any way. We've already talked about how confusing the geography is when they move in between or throughout a place, but I really just don't know, like, what does the circus's ship even look like? The carriage that Gwen originally gets taken to it in is very clearly like a steampunk, so Victorian, but also like kind of high-tech carriage. But then after that, like, the ship isn't really described, not its interior, not its exterior. I don't really know what her room looks like. I don't know what any of the characters' rooms look like for all the fucking time that we spend there. This
just romping in the sack.
Right, yeah, this dilapidated palace that I don't even know if it's dilapidated, actually. Did I imagine that? Maybe. But this palace that they're staying in on Grandstand, like, what's its deal? What kind of planet is Grandstand? I mean, I could go on like this for every single location. I don't know what any of these places look like. And for a steampunk novel, I have to say, I think that's unforgivable, quite frankly, because steampunk is an aesthetic.
Yes.
And aesthetics are kind of, sort of implicitly a visual thing.
Right.
So I don't really know what's happening there. I guess she just thought if she said it's like Treasure Planet in the marketing, everybody would be like,
fill in the blanks. I was about to say, you could just look on the cover and see what the ship was supposed to look like.
Right.
No, I completely agree. The starting point is basically anywhere, so I don't have anything to add to that you haven't established. God, it's very unmooring. I never know where we are. I've mentioned it a couple times in the summary where, like, it felt like the characters teleported to a completely different place, to say nothing of the giant vat of ice water with, like, a 200-foot canyon. I'm like, what is this? Anywhere. Just start anywhere. Give us an establishing shot, and then we'll be fine.
I was doing this, like, really annoying thing where I was just imagining the locations as various locations from video games and waiting to see if the book would contradict me at any point. I was kind of doing a little dare with myself.
Yeah.
And it never did. I was like, okay, what if the capital where the Emperor lives is like Leyndell from Elden Ring? What if the boat that they're on is the giant cruise ship from Persona 5?
Sure.
It's like, you know, it never mattered. It never mattered a single time. And that's probably bad, because you never want me to be thinking about Persona 5 when I'm reading it. This is petty as well, but just for the love of fuck, say coffee. This goes for everybody, for perpetuity. I don't want to hear your bean brew.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear steeped morning brew, as we got in this book, which was in the same fucking paragraph as the word tea. So tea, apparently, is on the table.
Yeah.
We can have tea, but we can't have coffee. God forbid that coffee exists. Just say fucking coffee. I know there's other examples of this we come across too, but why is it this word? Why can't we handle coffee?
What's the etymology of coffee? Does it come, like, from anything with a very specific cultural context?
Listen, I don't know. And I doubt anybody else does either off the top of their head.
Okay, fine.
Like, this is not one of those things like Braille, where it's like a person's name, and so if you insert it, it's like, oh, that's very clearly, you know, a French name.
Okay,
Coffee, like I don't. It's so normal.
Ultimately comes from Arabic, but specifically came through Dutch. I agree. I will raise you. This is the first time it's ever come up, but please say peanut butter. Gwen mentions that it felt like her mouth was full of nut butter, and I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you were going for. I don't know if that's what she wanted me to be thinking about.
I don't know why she couldn't have just picked a nut, because like there are lots of nut butters. Like peanut butter is just the most popular one. Like,
yeah, okay, it could be almond butter, to be fair, but still.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, it makes you pause and wonder, like, wait, why did she not pick a specific one? Like, what is implied by this?
Just a plurality of nuts, Jay. Just a plurality of nuts.
So there's a moment where a character literally says, "Well, that was awkward." You guys need to know that, but I don't have anything more to say about it. It kind of speaks for itself.
It was 2020. Come on, you know. I don't know.
No, I don't know. Some things are unforgivable. Some bridges are uncrossable.
Fine.
Okay, but here's what I actually wanted to say. It's not related to that. I had this whole thing written. I stupidly wrote this like in the last, somewhere in the last 70%-ish of the book. This whole screed about how like I can't tell what the human being Meg LaTorre is actually interested in this story, because so much feels like purely functional.
Sex. She's interested in sex, but I
had some dumbass joke in there about like, oh well, clearly she's just interested in like bisexual orgies or something, and it's like, yeah, well, whatever. Like, yes, true, but then the actual answer appeared in the last 10 pages, and I was like, okay, well, there it is. The human being Meg LaTorre is interested in working out the logistics of this polycule fantasy.
Yep.
That is what she as a person is interested in this book. I'm not saying that means that she as a person wants to have a polycule right now, or wanted to in 2020. If she did, more power to her.
Yeah.
I hope she's happy with them. But clearly the way that this book, its gravity shifts to make sure that it handles the drawing of these borders and people's like emotional energy and time and like them being respected. It's making sure to hit these certain beats, right? It's like it doesn't want to mishandle making people comfortable in the polycule. And that means that to me that this is something that Meg actually really cares about. And I think that means that this needs to come up much, much sooner. Andrew, I know that you might say that thing that you say sometimes where it's like, oh, well, you know, this is just set up for book 2. That's how a series works.
I only ever say that facetiously, but I completely agree.
If it's your take, like, I think it's a valid take. No. I just disagree. I think that if Meg is interested in this and the way that the entire voice of the book shifts leads me to think that she is, then this is what she should write about. Like, if the cyborg pirate circus people are just like a gimmick to her, then let them be a gimmick. Don't make that the whole like point of the book. Like, just write about this bisexual polycule and like the internal politics of it. I would read that. I mean, probably a lot of people wouldn't, because it doesn't have the same draw that like Pinterest board aesthetics like steampunk and like cyberpunk do. But like it would probably be a better, more honest, more human book. Like,
a contemporary lit-fic thing about a polycule would probably be so much better than this.
Yeah, it probably would be better. I mean, I'd probably roll my eyes at the premise of it if you pitched it to me, if I'm being honest. But like, if I read it and it was good, then I would lament. I would repent before you.
And you may learn something about the human experience.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that like too darky of a suggestion? I feel like kind of strongly about it.
It's not something we should ever, actually give to Meg. Because she wants to write the steampunk stuff. I know she doesn't care about it as much. I think it's relative caring. She really freaking cares about the polycule, but she likes space pirate circuses. And I think your earlier suggestion of just having this a little bit earlier would be all that we need here. You actually have a way more nuanced opinion of this than I do, because again, I'm really kind of revolted by a lot of things in this book, but especially we are going to robotically trade our understandings of polyamory. I, Bastian, am going to forget all of my reservations about polyamory, almost like he has a chip that's being mind controlled.
Oh my God.
I am going to have a cool, awesome threesome, and then I, Gwyn, am going to change my partner's names and take them away to some corner of the galaxy where we can have threesomes in peace. And I think, to be very charitable, Meg LaTorre would not actually lure two people into a polyamorous relationship, change their names, and drive them out to Minnesota somewhere. But I just don't know. I think if it were given more time to breathe, we wouldn't reach this extremity of shit that is bad.
Yeah, it's like stuff like a cult leader does now that you outline it that way.
It's very cult leader, so not good. Even if you stretched it out and even if it was better handled, I don't think you should ever have her change her partner's names for them. Even just have them suggest it for themselves. It could be, they could still change their names, but like, I doth thee Adam, you are Adam henceforth is just not sexy.
Adam is such like a weighty name too, like symbolically. It's like the progenitor of like humankind. Like, what are you trying to say about that? Like, what does he signify? Well,
isn't the prince in Beauty and the Beast Prince Adam?
Oh, is he?
I don't know. I think so. I think there is a Prince Adam. I don't know.
I believe you.
To that point though, what I was really worried about is that she would turn to Aurora and be like, "And I doth you Eve," and then suddenly the ship starts to crash and they're like, "Oh no, we're heading towards a remote planet. What's it called? Earth." Roll credits. But anyways,
oh my God.
She would be Gwyn would be the snake in the garden.
She'd be Lilith.
She'd be Lilith. Never mind. No, Lilith is better. I forgot about Lilith. That's too apocryphal.
This is like, it almost feels too obvious to say. I'm sitting here like, does this bear bringing up? But the fact that the mistress and the emperor exchange evil plan monologues at the end, like they are just explaining at each other who they are, what they want to do, why they want to do it. By what means they will achieve it, and how the characters presently in the room will factor into that plan. Again, like, this is such a trite criticism, but like, it shouldn't be in the book at all. These characters should be characters where they have conversations with each other that like gradually draw out this information, and some of it is left unstated because we know through implication like this or that detail. This feels like a Saturday morning cartoon to a degree that's like kind of egregious.
Yes.
Like, I almost couldn't believe it was happening.
I do think it bears stating. However, I have nothing to add to that because it is just as bad as it sounds. And with the mistress / Celeste, whoever her stupid name is that you've retained from our dumb summary, when she's doing it, no one's there to listen to her. So it's double stupid. So it's kind of like with the cult renaming thing. I feel like these things should have just been stretched out a little bit further than the last 20 pages. But yeah, it is resolutely not a good thing. It is very interesting to me, going back to the meta text, that this book is self-published. So much of iWriterly's shtick is I have experience with queries, I have experience with talking to publishers, I worked at an agency, I did XYZ thing, or may not have, depending on what the actual facts of the case are. I'm not going to talk about like my personal opinions on publishing traditional versus self. It is just an objective fact that there are gatekeepers in traditional publishing that are not there in self-publishing, which says to me that Meg must have known, at least subconsciously, that this book was not ready. That this book was just not ready to, as Rupi Kaur would say, circumvent the gatekeepers of traditional publishing. And
right.
I really can only just say that and then ask the rhetorical question of, okay, so then why did she even publish it now?
Maybe it was a COVID thing. Like, maybe she was just feeling antsy and she was like, if I'm going to push this thing out, maybe now's a good time since everybody else is at home.
Yeah, which, fair. I did very many life-changing choices that were ultimately worked out better than this, but were reckless and ill-advised in the moment. But I was like, screw it, the world's ending, so I might as well. So maybe that was the mentality here. I know we've been ragging on it and our tone probably has been meaner than it's been for a while, but like, I feel like this is the penultimate draft of a book that we would see on the shelf with Powerless and Lightlark. Like, I think she needed one more round, literally one more round of beta readers to say all of the things that you and IJ just said, and then, you know, it would be a Powerless, it would be a Fourth Wing, it would be one of those. Like, this is bad, but you can tell it's very close to not having been.
Yeah, it could very easily be one of those just like passable genre fiction books that you see at every single Barnes and Noble, but you like don't know anybody that's read it, but also it's a New York Times bestseller.
Right.
I could totally see it occupying that niche.
Right, and I like what you're saying about like the inherent recklessness to it, because I mean it's the same thing with yanking all of your videos off the internet and going dark. Like, foresight and thought weren't there, and it's less tragic than the Goodreads reviews things, because like no one forced you to publish this book as far as we know, but it's just sad, you know.
It's kind of hard to focus on getting that final draft out when you're like moving out to rural Minnesota, but I get it.
With your new sycophants.
Right. When you and your husband and your husband's girlfriend are moving out to Iowa.
Wherever cults go these days. Gwyn swallowed back tears. Whether it was from the pain in her legs, from having nearly killed Marzana, or from the thought of what she was about to do, she wasn't sure. The screams of the cyborgs echoed in the theater throughout the night. She lost all sense of time, place, of herself, blood soaked through her tunic and pants, running into her boots until she left scarlet footprints. Somehow, they kept going until they reclaimed all but one implant. As she sliced through skin and tendons, reaching for the final performer's implant, the man looked up at her, his face splattered with his own blood. In a gurgling hiss, he uttered two words that cut down to Gwyn's very core. Grim Reaper. Now that we've established our boundaries, our personal preferences, and the extent to which we are attracted to certain things, do you want to enter a grotesque union with many minced oaths and many euphemisms for parts of the body?
Andrew, I am attracted to so many things.
More than one.
And I will outline them for you now. I am attracted to a version of this book, for example, where the Emperor killed Gwen's parents instead of just, like, stripping them of their lands or whatever. Because she kind of resents what he did, but the fact that they were able to recover financially, at least mostly, and, like, still give her a comfortable life kind of undercuts the fact that he, like, destroyed her childhood or whatever. If he had just straight up killed them and left her an orphan and she had been forced to take up ship tinkering or whatever just to get by, then she would have a more personal reason to actually want to get close to him later on. It's like, I realize that what I'm suggesting is a move from one fairly cliche backstory to another, but I think that the one I'm suggesting is at least cleaner and more interesting.
I think it's cleaner and more interesting, but to be an enlightened centrist, could we meet in the middle some way with this? Because I can't be the guy who says that he hates sex and killing people if I say, okay, it's fine if you kill these people. So could they just not build back their original wealth? What if they just all become hermits together? Like, they don't need to be like lassied or not lassied. They don't need to be old yellered in front of her face for this to be interesting. I mean, what you're saying is more interesting than what we have, but there's different things you can do with this.
What if I out-centrist you by suggesting an even more centrist solution, which is that she doesn't know what happened to her parents because the night that the Emperor attacked, she like fled her burning manor or whatever, and she never saw her family again.
These are all terrible cliches, but sure. None of these are good. I don't know what the right answer is here. Sometimes there isn't one. You know, you steer the ship best as you can. Sometimes you hit the rocks, and other times you fly into space.
I mean, there's only so many times I can say that thing that I said during Age of Scorpius and Nova's playlist, where it's like, once you start drilling to the root of the problem, you realize you have to rewrite everything from the beginning, which, like, on some level is something that I think almost every single book that we have ever talked about on this show needs. This one, maybe not, but this is a moment where I feel myself mentally going that way.
Right.
I'm like, Well, her backstory is like cliche, and if all of the alternate ideas that we suggest are inadvertently also stumbling into cliche, then maybe we just need to like start over.
Right. Do not have dragons. Do not have dragons. Do not have dragons. I can take Steampunk Circus. I can take sci-fi steampunk circus where boats can fly into space and force fields can be generated around planets and people wear stupid hats and stupid goggles. You can blast steam-powered giraffe into my ears until blood leaks from my eardrums. Do not tell me that there are also dragons flying around. I'm sorry. I can't say anything else. Just don't have dragons.
It feels like the aesthetic of this book is actually just Renaissance Festival and not steampunk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. You're totally right. Like, there's different zones with slightly different aesthetics, but, like, everyone's this general, like, D&D 5e flavor of generic kind of fantasy.
It is a blur of pretty much every conceivable fantasy and sci-fi aesthetic. You've got the Lovecraftian, you've got the Tolkienian, you've got the steampunk, you've got the solar punk, you've got the cozy witch with the mushroom hut. Like, it's all just blended up in there.
Yeah.
And it feels so identityless for it.
Right. Yeah, it does have this strange, like, diluting effect. This was, ironically, something that I learned about from a Brandon Sandin lecture when I was in between iWriterly videos, where he's like, there's a tendency with people writing their first book to kind of want to make it the everything novel, have every single idea they've ever had rolled up into one. And then there were steampunk pirates, and then there was a sexy bisexual, and then they went into space, and then there were space fights, and then there was a threesome, and then there was a dragon who like fought with the skateboard. You can see like all of these, to be generous, all of these may possibly be able to factor into a story, but they can't all fit, you know?
Right, absolutely. It's like Nova's playlist in that way a little bit. It's like, oh, what if there were cowboys? Oh, and there were superheroes and zombies.
Right, right. Just focus on a couple things. Focus on a couple. We can keep the space steampunk, even if Jay doesn't think that's where your heart lies. But no dragons. That's all I have to say.
I can agree to that. I would like to see the circus feel more corporate if it's going to be corporate. I would prefer that it's kind of scrappy and doesn't fit in well when they are called upon to be in like more formal situations. But that is just a preference of mine. I think if it's going to be the way that it is, I want to see more of this weird, unsettling stuff, like what Andrew was mentioning earlier with like, oh, your body is company property. Oh, the mistress has this ultimate authority and Bastion is somewhere also like higher up on this pyramid. But like there are additional ranks and sub-ranks and things like that. Where
you wanted to be more Kafka-esque.
I do a little bit, and I think that would align really well with the direction that the mistress's character is already going, where she wants to make all of these rules and systems, but they don't actually align. And that kind of doesn't matter to her because in all the systems, she's the ultimate authority.
Right.
So like she forces everybody else to play these little games, these bureaucratic games, perhaps, while she just gets to like step in wherever she wants and change the rules as she sees fit.
Right.
Because as it is, it feels like it's kind of tending in that direction, but like not in a intentional way. It kind of just feels like it doesn't know what it is.
If nothing else, it would make Celeste matter more if like there were a web of red tape preventing Gwen from getting access to her, or their meetings could only be under certain contexts. At present, what we have is a situation where she has this like Trevor Goodchild identity problem where sometimes she's the evil queen, sometimes she's a mad scientist, sometimes she's a weird dominatrix lion tamer, and one can be all three of these things, but having a cloak of mystery over her so she's not just like popping in and out and just saying, hey, what's going on to our characters could make it feel a little bit more serious. I don't know. So, God, I'm being so mean this episode. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm in a bad mood. Sorry, guys. So I'm just taking it out on this book. Meg, I'm going to ask you a question that is kind of attacking the very core of this book. Talk about what we were saying earlier about like different layers of things going wrong. And I'm not trying to be mean about this. You can completely ignore me if you want to, /Jen. What in universe is the appeal of a cyborg circus? So I live in a spacefaring society, futuristic world with dragons and all this awesome shit. Why would I pay to watch a guy with cybernetic enhancements pick up something slightly heavier than an average man could pick up?
Especially if you could be executed for
especially if I could be executed for doing so. In the real world, if I bought an Arduino and some servo motors, would you care if I could program them to throw a ball back and forth? And even if your answer is yes, would you pay for tickets in an auditorium to watch this robot arm pass a ball back and forth? It does not have the appeal. I know it's a cutesy little word, and I know it fits in your aesthetic, but it just doesn't have like the appeal in universe to justify that which it is.
You know what could turn that around, Andrew?
What?
Is if we actually saw what some of the acts were.
Okay,
if they were really fucking cool, then maybe your tune would change a little.
Okay, for real, like, we know that Rora's a trapeze artist, and we know that Abracadabra or someone related to him lifts weights. So, okay, so even if, like, the numbers changed, even if Rora flipped 500 feet in the air, which was twice as long as... it's what I say about numbers all the time, like, you can't conceive of it, and if you knew what was happening, it just would make it more mundane. There are ways around this. My pet idea would be have the like seedy underbelly that they're like making as their clientele be a little bit more upper class. Like, these are shady lesser nobles who want to buy cyborg enhancements. So this isn't really a circus, it's kind of a marketing scheme. I think that might be a little bit too much to actually implement, so I understand if that's just untenable. But, like, even if, like, you mentioned it was illegal, what if it was the thrill of just seeing something illegal that was the appeal, and not just the fact that they're doing trapeze acts or whatever? Does that make any sense to you?
No, that does make a lot of sense. I think it just, like, it feels very rational at the root of it. Like, why would you go see this? Even if there was no threat of death,
right.
Like, who cares?
Especially if
like,
there was no threat.
There are marvels greater than these, like, apparently just living up in the woods outside your house. Like, why would you pay for this?
It burned down your favorite tavern the other day.
And I maintain that if the acts were cool, then they would go for the same reason that people go in real life, to see something cool, especially if the animals were involved. I think that would be very cool. But I'm unconvinced, that this circus is anything. And I like your idea of, like, what if instead of it being like a bunch of people with nowhere else to go, if it was like nobility who were like not that well known, kind of what they used to do to like younger sons and daughters in the Middle Ages, right? They would send them off to monasteries. Like, what if instead they sent them off to the cyborg circus and they were like earn some money or something? I don't know. Could be interesting.
Just to clarify, that's not what I meant. I meant like the audience were the nobles. Like, they were like this was like a tech demo of cyborg parts for minor nobles' personal armies or whatever. I like your idea too. I don't want you to misunderstand me, but I meant something completely different.
No, I think your idea actually squares better with something that we were saying earlier, though, about it feeling more corporate. Like, if this was if this was like a, what do you call it? Like a convention, basically, like a traveling illegal medical convention.
Sure. Like a tent revival, but for science.
And wouldn't it be cool if some of like the nobles who work with the emperor were secretly getting cyborg enhancements so that they could, I don't know, eventually plot to overthrow him or something?
Right. That would be really cool. But it would
underscore the hypocrisy of this regime. And I'm assuming in this version that we're getting rid of the hypnosis thing, because that just muddies everything. But
sure, we can get rid of the hypnosis or not. I don't care. It's just the fact that, like, again, I couldn't justify ever buying a ticket to a cyborg circus if I lived in this world. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say it's stupid or that you never should have written it. I'm not literally attacking the heart of this novel. I just mean, like, maybe more thought should have been put into it.
Maybe more thought should have been put into it.
While I'm being mean, I want you to do something for me, Meg. Figure out if there's a way, because I don't know if there is, maybe on some word processors, to find all text where format equals italics. Select every word in italics in your entire corpus of your book, hit backspace, and then read back through it. I guarantee you will only need to adjust like 2 things, because something that this book does, and I think it may be isolated to Gwyn's POV, but I could be wrong. For example, so the text would be Marzana fell to the ground, clutching their chest as blood poured from between their fingers. There was a great clap of thunder that echoed around the planet, and then enter, in italics, did Marzana just get shot? Like, it is always, I'm not a reading wizard or anything. It's always this obvious that she just restates in a question or a statement exactly what happened.
That's it. That's another aesthetic I should have mentioned when I said this is Renaissance fair-like, because that is from anime.
It's so from anime. Yeah, it's very like side character in a tournament arc. Like the freaking all the little Genkai people were sitting there. Wow, that guy just got punched. Like, come on.
Do you think we need Aurora's perspective at all? Because I've been toying around with the idea of like, what if it was just cut? I guess we would lose like her desire to receive patronage from the Emperor or something. But to be honest, like, I don't really care about that, because I don't really know like what she wants to receive patronage for, other than some like vague idea of like being an artist. Like, if she had some kind of actual vision for what she wanted to achieve as an artist, then maybe I'd be back on board. So maybe it's just like a fix this thing rather than like a cut this thing. But like her perspective feels a lot weaker to me than Gwen's does. Like, her voice is a little bit less distinct, and her situation with like the miscommunications is very confusing. Whether or not she's a liar is confusing, and some of that would go away if we got rid of it.
I will, for the sake of discussion, be more in the cut it camp. This is another thing, like, talk about like late 2010s, early 2020s. It's just another way that George R.R. Martin has ruined books forever, is the multi-POV thing. Because I believe that Rora is book ruiningly weak of a character. And maybe if you just got rid of her, not her, but her POV, a lot of the problems that I'm noticing would just get swept under the rug like so many crumbs.
I think so.
So I don't think that would be very good for like the long-term success of this work, but I think it would make it more pleasant in the interim. So I would absolutely think that cutting him is a good idea, because I don't know, Gwen, there's so much untapped potential in Gwen that I feel like having multiple POVs just dilutes the situation.
Yeah, I think you could compellingly argue that Rora is there to make up for parts of Gwen's character that are not like fully fleshed out. Like, we need like more stuff to fill the space. And that stuff happens to take the form of this other character. It also, having Rora there also feels like an in-between step, rather than fully committing to having 3 POVs, because Bastion is like right there, and he's also theoretically, I guess, like one of the main characters. So it's kind of conspicuous that he doesn't have a point of view chapter ever. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, like 2 is such an awkward number, especially when there's 3 main characters. Like, what's going on with that?
Right, and I'm not going to advocate for yet another POV, but it is weird.
No, me neither. Weird. It is weird, and like, if we saw some stuff through his eyes, we might have more access to Celeste / the Mistress / Emmeline, and that could make her feel, like you said, like she's doing more stuff, and she's more there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, get rid of the POVs. Just get rid of them. The more I think about it, the more I'm actually squarely in this camp. There's just so much we can do with Gwen that just doesn't get done. For example, there is a very small detail with Gwen's cybernetic eye that I want to see more expounded upon. So it whirs. Her eye makes whirring noise. And I know that's kind of a very innocuous statement, but just sit for a second and imagine if every waking moment of your life, your eyeball were making a whirring noise. this would drive me, at least, like, fucking insane. And we see this drop-off of, like, the interest in Gwen's character after she stops dying. I think having this as, like, a source of angst and be like, oh, this stupid eyeball keeps me up all night. Did I make the wrong decision? Would I rather be dead than stuck as a prisoner on this terrible circus where I have a screaming eyeball? Like it could factor into her angst a little bit more and keep that through line going even after the tumor gets removed.
Yeah, I would like to see that angst maintained in some way like that, because like she is negative, I guess, like throughout the book, but she's rarely as angsty as she was at the beginning. She's more just like sarcastic and like aloof, which is fine. I don't know. I just would prefer introspection.
And it's a weird transition too for her to go in that direction, because I don't want to do any kind of relative morality thing, and I don't want to like compare you dying versus other people dying, but it's probably, in my opinion, a worse situation that she's in after she gets saved, because knowing that I will die by natural means soon is a much easier pill to swallow than I have contributed to the death and enslavement of hundreds of people and butchered them with my own hands. Like, she has a lot of reason to be introspective and angsty right now, and I feel like she keeps getting distracted.
I do think that this book needs to like acknowledge more firmly that what she's doing is wrong, and that like in doing it she does not become a victim of it because she feels bad for having done it. You know what I'm saying? Like, she is doing irreparable harm to a lot of people, and like, is she doing it just for the hell of it? No, like there is pressure on her, and like there is a threat on her life, but also she is still doing it. She is choosing to comply. There are alternatives. They're not pleasant, but there are alternatives. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. At the very least, we just need to not have her like be so woe is me. Maybe I'm just extra sensitive to this coming off of Age of Scorpius, where Rika was very like a small bean that could do no wrong. But it was really getting on my nerves.
Yeah, it's very Age of Scorpius because of how many people apologize and how many people say that Gwen did no wrong. There was actually an exchange that was just like Age of Scorpius, where Bastian was like, you couldn't have known that you were miswiring Marzana's foot.
Right,
you couldn't have done anything differently, you little cinnamon roll, and pats her on the head.
It's a little Steven Universe / Neg at times.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that.
Steven Universe.
Hate to say that.
I thought it was going in the Steven Universe direction when Gwen just like talks at the mistress enough to where she's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll help you guys escape. I know she goes back to being evil, but it was very just like, have we tried talking to the evil murderer?
It was very Yellow Diamond, and that is something you don't want. That's something you definitely don't want. Speaking of that, do we need to have the mistress be sympathetic, like, at all? I don't understand what the novel is trying to achieve by trying to make us feel bad for her right at the end. Like, oh, all along you hated her, but actually her kids died, so don't you feel bad for her? Right. It's like, well, no, like, she was evil. She contributed to the oppression, like, directly, and she enacted the oppression of a marginalized group. Like, she created the marginalized group and then profited off of it, and then continued to do so when it became at its most vulnerable, and then like also tried to mind troll them. Also, like, the fact that she had kids is sort of immaterial. Like, I don't really care.
I guess we don't need her to have a tragic backstory. I liked it better than she was just in it for the love of the game, so I don't know about excising it. Maybe not trying to make it such a gotcha, like, don't you feel bad for the murderer now thing would be enough here.
Yeah, I think so. She can still have the kids, I suppose. But like, that the kids can be just an explanation and not like actually she's a tragic figure. Because, I mean, even if she was legitimately a tragic figure, I don't think you're going to be able to convince the reader of that in like a paragraph of dialogue.
No.
Like, that you spit out all at once right at the climax, because it feels as lazy as it is. It's really hard to disguise that you didn't manage as a writer to work this in a more natural place, and so you're trying to get it in at the end.
The biggest thing that contributed to this book's failure in the marketplace of books is that it came out a year too early. In every sense of the word, it came out too early. I feel like a year's time, again, another round of beta readers or whatever, could have rendered this entire episode completely useless. Not to speak ill of SBU, but I don't think you and I said anything that's like the most amazing original idea that no one else could have come up with. It's very obvious what is wrong with this book. I would flatter us
pretty dang fixable
to believe. But at the same time, it strikes me how different this book feels, despite being an oversexed, overcomplicated, yet at the same time very simplistic language using book. The characters are dramatic but not terribly complicated, and they shift according to the whims of the plot and whatever's the sexiest output of the situation. And when you lay it out like that, it kind of sounds like every other stupid young adult, new adult book that we have discussed. We have our little snooty opinions, but there's people out there who love Lightlark, who love Powerless, who love yada yada yada. But not a lot of people like this book, or this book was so hit by bad opinions and bad reviews out the gate that it never got to a target audience. And
this is a good point, because it does hit a lot of the same beats as a Lightlark or a YA romantasy
whatever.
nightmare.
Yeah, nightmare.
But like, it's kind of a smoother read than some of those in certain ways. Like, it feels very corporate. It feels almost in by committee. It bears the trace of someone who really thinks that writing can be reduced to like numbered lists of tips. But you know, that makes for something that's quite understandable, mostly, geography notwithstanding. It's like the narrative is followable, like if you don't get hung up on Rora's exact motivations, and it moves at a good clip, and the conflict is always clear. So I think you're right that like maybe if it hadn't been hit so hard right as it was being released, it could have risen to the level of another one of those books.
And I've been mean to Meg, I've been mean to you, and now I'm going to be mean to everyone, because what I think the problem here with this book is demographics. So there are people who want to turn their brain off, read a fun, snacky book, enjoy some sexy, fun adventures, and there are people who watch writing advice videos for fun. And I'm not judging either group of those people, but I feel comfortable saying that the overlap between these demographics is not as large as the overlap between other groups.
That's a good point. You might think at the outset that they would have a really big overlap because they're both writing related. But from my experience, the kind of people you find on r/writing, which is also where you're likely to find people who like writing advice YouTube videos, are the kind of people who hate Lightlark and Powerless and all of that stuff.
Sure, yeah. And you know, like I say I like movies, but I'm not a film buff. You know, it's more of a spectrum than anything. Like, again, I'm not trying to be like, oh, this is Books Talk's fault or whatever. I'm just saying that like Meg LaTorre fostered this erudite group of followers. And the book is bad, even if it were like a better version of this. The book that we have is bad. But if this book were the perfect execution of a snarky, steamy, steampunk sci-fi romance book, it would have turned me off. Well, it did turn me off, and it probably would have turned off a lot of other people. Like, I gave that spiel in the beginning because, again, I don't think I'm an atypical person. I think a lot of people have had the literary journey that I have, trying to be a writer and get help from without. And I think ultimately what we're looking at when we see the Cyborg Tinkerer is the entrails of a sacrificial lamb that would later give rise to the fires of Book Talk. And I'm not trying to make value judgments. I'm just saying what I think I'm seeing.
I think she also cultivated an audience that was armed with maxims to level against her. Should she ever divert from even a single one of them. Like, that is a fundamental flaw of the type of writing advice that was so popular in that era. where it's like writing can be reduced to rules. And if you don't follow those rules, you are writing wrong. And if you do follow them, then you are writing good.
Right.
And it just doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, like, I think people, when they're new to the writing world, get overzealous and they cling to those ideas because it helps them feel stable. It helps them feel like they're learning something. It helps them feel like they're improving. And so when their teacher of those rules then writes this,
right,
which violates some of those rules for valid reasons and some out of carelessness, it suddenly probably feels very unsettling,
right,
because you have to question everything you've learned.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and again, like, I think a lot of people hating this book is completely genuine. Maybe not if you've only read the sample chapters and then decided you wanted to share some gifs on Goodreads, but I think it's perfectly natural to dislike this book. But it's understandable, and it's also weird because, like, you and I do this podcast because we have a lot of experience in critique groups. We're not sharing the top 10 how to write a best-selling book and how to write a query letter. Like, we're just distilling an experience that we've had with real weirdos, with internet weirdos. And in real life university, we had a professor who was a very good creative writing professor, had never been published. He was like a lawyer or something. But I still gained from going to his class. Like, I didn't waste my time. When Yahtzee Croshaw ever makes a game, people are going to hate it. Because they're going to go through zero punctuation and find all the things that he didn't like about Fantasy World Dizzy and then bring it up and be like, why did you have a chest high walls segment here?
Exactly.
I don't know. It's just sad what happened here. But I hope this has been at least somewhat constructive, because I'm sure, like, putting every good idea you've ever had into a book is an inclination that a lot of people get starting out, and being able to see a cautionary tale kind of roll out in front of you is helpful, I hope.
It's also ironic, like, Meg LaTorre should have been one of the people most equipped to not fall for that trap that you set for yourself.
Yeah.
And yet somehow she did.
If you'd like a good time, Gwen, I'd be happy to show you.
Rora paused long enough to smile mischievously up at Gwen, whose dark eye was rimmed with possibility, a single eyebrow raised in unspoken question. Those eyes narrowed as she considered. Mandatory attendance, you say? With a chuckle, she placed the screwdriver on one of the tables, giving Rora a great view of an ass the sun could orbit.
Jesus
Rora's
Christ.
gaze swept up to the Tinkerer's full hips and narrow waist. When Gwen turned around, a single smile was on her lips. So, are you going to ask me? Or what?
People are going to think that we're, like, cherry picking the especially horny and gross scenes, but no. No, it's just all like
it's just
this.
kind of like this. This is why the dramatic readings are so key, because this kind of thing doesn't come up in the summary, and it's, like, impossible to explain that this is what it feels like to actually read.
Yeah. But Meg, I think that's all we have for you today.
I think that is more than enough. That's probably one of the fairest shakes this book has ever gotten.
I hope so. Because, like, I have felt like I've been a little bit more aggressive, and because I've fallen into the same traps that a lot of, like, reviewers do, where, like, I trusted you and this is what you did kind of thing. I don't know. So I hope you had fun, Meg, and I hope you enjoyed, listener, this amazing steamy experience.
I'm not signing off on this. If you feel that way, keep it to yourself.
Hey, but thank you guys so much for listening. Before we head out, we want to thank our supporters both on YouTube and on Ko-Fi, who have kept our space sails afloat and become the force field that shields us against the trapeze artists of the algorithm and lets us talk about 5-year-old books that nobody cares about without feeling like we're completely wasting our lives. The Order of the Orb Foxes: Drinkolith, Pink Catsy, Simply FJ, Aiden Feldkamp, Ren, Arthur Clybourne Wrights, Spooks, John Pick, Window, Zubin, Courtney, Hallucigeno, Merka, Beep Beeps, Dangerous Butterknife, Flamingo Sugar, Mar, Finsright, Tuskine Kinase, Goldfish Petey, Sophia, Neo Turnips, Ruth, Lisa, Mikhail, Gabriel, Lisa, Charlotte, Quarg, Shri, B, KDV, Cosmically 3, Duncan Daggers, Mia, Andy, Lady Inari, Mel, Kira, Flamingo Sugar's wife, Lindo, Park Piggy, Daisy, Astra, and Max. Our cyborgs who can lift weights that are slightly heavier than a normal human can lift weights are our English Club members. They are Natalia, Mallard Griff, Ace, Evil Red Flame, Milo is Tired, A Marvelous Geek, Will Peach, Navari, Renee, Constant Blade, Astro, Corrupted Luna, Gecko Jesus, Ennui, Lolel, Ta Ether, Eris, Grossberg Law Offices, Sarah, Rue, and Amir. Thank you guys so much for supporting and sitting with us through this crazy, crazy ride. We will see you around campus.
See you around campus.
If there was anyone who could make dying look good, it was Rora. Like the last time Gwen had seen her, Rora lay on her bed with her arms folded delicately across her stomach. Only this time, her fingers rested atop a single red rose. All around the pillow, her curly brown hair was loose. The sight startled Gwen more than anything, as Rora rarely wore her hair down. Her lips were the color of a blooming pink rose, and her skin glowed as though she'd just spent a day in the sunshine. Even at death's door, Rora managed to take Gwen's breath away.